Chapter 556. Although the Fire Demon King was conceited, he didn't dare to be careless in the face of a saint-level physical collision. With a wave of his right hand, he swatted at the sacred evolution fire dragon's tail. At this moment, Ji-dong had already leapt up from the sacred evolution fire dragon's head. Just like the sacred evolution fire dragon's tail, he also attacked the Fire Demon King's chest. The coordination between man and dragon was perfect at this moment. Just like how the Fire Demon King wanted to suppress Ji-dong's demonic power, Ji-dong was very clear about his advantage. Without Chen Sishu's fusion of soul power, he definitely couldn't pose a threat to his opponent. Therefore, the closest thing he had to the Fire Demon King was his saint-level body. Even though it was a low-level saint-level body, it was still saint-level. The difference between his 8 crowns cultivation and the high-level saint-level magic power was much smaller. Therefore, it could be said that he used all means to get close to the Fire Demon King. He wanted to repeat what Ajin had done. However, don't forget that Ji-dong wasn't Ajin. In terms of close combat techniques, Ajin was definitely the strongest among the heavenly stem saints. However, in terms of close combat power, who could compare with Ji-dong, who had the 6th realm of God Destroyer strike? Boom! The Fire Demon King was indeed strong. The sacred evolution fire dragon's tail hammer collided with his right palm, but the Fire Demon King didn't even shake. On the other hand, the sacred evolution fire dragon's tail bounced back, and its body spun in the air before it stabilized. It didn't gain any advantage at all. However, it had already achieved its goal, because there was still Ji-dong behind it. Maotai and Wuliangye were connected with Ji-dong's mind. Even without the connection between their souls, they could perfectly execute Ji-dong's plan. The moment the dragon tail collided with the Fire Demon King's right palm, Ji-dong's fist had already arrived. He had been waiting for this moment. The Fire Demon King had just repelled the sacred evolution fire dragon and was in a state of exerting its own strength. At this moment, Ji-dong's fist had arrived. Ji-dong had grasped the opportunity perfectly. The Fire Demon King couldn't help but praise the cooperation between Ji-dong and the sacred evolution fire dragon, but he didn't think that it was useful. Even though he had just fought with the two-headed dragon, he was still a high-level saint-level powerhouse. Apart from the fact that his soul power had yet to reach that level, his body and mana were both at the same level. Even if he had consumed a portion of his mana, it wasn't something that Ji-dong could compare to. It turned out that all the opponents who underestimated Ji-dong had to pay the price. Ji-dong used both fists to attack the Fire Demon King's palm. The left fist was as black as ink, and the right fist was as dazzling as gold. The moment his fists collided with the Fire Demon King's palm, the Fire Demon King sensed that something was amiss. He was indeed worthy of being the strongest powerhouse in the core world. He could still react in such a situation. The huge palm suddenly fluctuated, and he tried his best to limit the mana that Ji-dong injected to the edge of his palm. This was already the limit that he could do. However, he was still a step too late. The mana in Ji-dong's fists was still injected into the Fire Demon King's right palm. In such a short period of time, Ji-dong had paid a huge price to rush to the front of the Fire Demon King, so it was impossible for him to gather enough mana to release a sure-kill technique. However, Ji-dong had already done his best. He naturally used the deity strike to attack the Fire Demon King's palm. However, this was also the first time that Ji-dong used the deity strike to launch a sure-kill technique. The Dark Flame Devil King's sure-kill technique, Icy Flames, and the Flame Monarch's sure-kill technique, Brilliant Sun all, were sealed and compressed in his left and right fist. You don't want to know the secret of my yin and yang fusion. Alright, I'll let you have a taste of it first. It shouldn't be forgotten that Ji-dong also had a saint-grade physique. His power had already been raised to the extreme when he punched with both fists. He did what the sacred evolution fire dragon hadn't been able to do previously. He forcefully raised the Fire Demon King's right palm before it could even react. In the next moment, the radiance on the Fire Demon King's right palm had already undergone a tremendous change. A violent rumble echoed from the Flame Devil King's right palm. Terrifying mana fluctuations soared into the sky. Gold and black lights burst out from the Flame Devil King's right palm and condensed into a Taiji diagram in the air. It looked beautiful and strange. The Fire Demon King let out a pained roar. He brazenly swatted his left palm without holding back. The tyrannical mana and power swept away Ji Dong and the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. However, Ji Dong and his Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon were clearly prepared. When the Fire Demon King's left palm swept over aimlessly, Ji Dong had already recalled the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon into the space to reduce the area of impact. Then, he curled up into a ball with his wings wrapped around his body. Just like that, he was sent flying by the strong mana impact. The Fire Demon King also had dual flames, but his attributes couldn't hurt Ji Dong at all. Although the mana he released was huge, it was very scattered. It was possible to send Ji Dong flying, but it was impossible to really hurt Ji Dong. Originally, the attention of the Earth's core rankers who were watching the battle below was focused on the three battles. After the Fire Spirit King's soul force enveloped the red flames, causing them to be unable to see the battle, their attention was focused on the two-side. But at this moment, the gazes of almost all the Earth's core rankers were frozen on the body of the Devil King who had his right palm raised high, shining with the light of Tai Chi, roaring towards the sky in pain. A core elder of the Flaming Bar Holy Church whispered to another elder beside him, "The Fire Demon King seems to be injured. Is that really a human? And his mana is so weak, how did he do it? It seems that those guys were not defeated unjustly." Oh my God, facing the Fire Demon King, the first to be injured was not him, but the Fire Demon King. Do you dare to believe it? The conversation between the two core elders could be said to have spoken the thoughts of most of the Earth's core powerhouses. Yes, who would have thought that Ji Dong could injure the Fire Demon King first? Who would dare to believe it? However, the truth was right in front of them, and they had no choice but to believe it. Of course, they didn't know that Ji Dong wasn't feeling well either. In the previous attack, he could be said to have exhausted all of his energy. Whether it was his own performance or the short but incomparably exquisite cooperation with the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, it was already beyond his level. Furthermore, he had been enduring the huge pressure from the Fire Demon King from the beginning to the end. In reality, Ji Dong's plan wasn't complete. In his plan, this round of attack wouldn't end here. Ji Dong's fighting style was to explode in an instant to defeat his opponent. He originally had endless trump cards, but the Fire Demon King was simply too powerful. In the entire process, Ji Dong had exhausted too much of his mental strength. As a result, after he attacked the Fire Demon King's body with the Brilliant Sun All and the Ice of Netherflame, he was already exhausted and couldn't continue to resist. He could only retreat temporarily. Moreover, all of this was based on the Fire Demon King's contempt towards him. Therefore, although the Fire Demon King had injured the Fire Demon King, Ji Dong, who had retreated far away, didn't reveal any expression of excitement. On the contrary, he had a solemn expression. The Fire Demon King definitely wouldn't give him such an opportunity a second time, and the damage that he had done to the Fire Demon King was extremely limited. Ji Dong was very clear that under the Fire Demon King's extreme reaction, the deity-killing strike only sent the two ultimate skills into his palm, and before they could penetrate deep into his palm, they had already exploded. The one that was injured was at most the Fire Demon King's right palm. Compared to Ji Dong's solemn expression, the Fire Demon King was extremely shocked and furious. He had never thought that he would be injured by such a weak human. If it wasn't for the deity-killing strike, with Ji Dong's demonic power, he wouldn't be injured even if he stood there and let Ji Dong attack him. The domineering deity-killing strike and the instantaneous explosion of the sun, moon, and universe world in his body shocked the Fire Demon King greatly. No matter how unwilling he was to admit it, he also understood that he had underestimated this human youth. He indeed had the ability to injure him. Apart from them, the battles on the other two sides were still going on. No one knew the battle situation between the Fire Spirit King and Hong Yen, but the Fire Lotus King had the upper hand against the Saint-Tier Fire Demon. The Saint-Tier Fire Demon was struggling and could only defend passively. It was getting more and more difficult. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was obvious. Even though he had released all of his Saint-Tier strength, the Fire Lotus King's ever-changing attacks, overbearing demonic power and soul power suppressed him to the point that he didn't have any chance to breathe. Even he didn't know how long he could last. The Saint-Tier Fire Demon didn't have time to observe the situation on the battlefield and didn't know the battle situation between Ji Dong and the Fire Demon King. However, the Fire Lotus King had been paying attention to this side. She attacked her opponent while monitoring the battle between Ji Dong and the Fire Demon King. Ji Dong was the lover of the flaming bar. No matter what, she couldn't let the Fire Demon King kill Ji Dong. When she saw that the Fire Demon King was injured by Ji Dong, she couldn't help but be stunned. Even her attacks slowed down a little, allowing the Saint-Tier Fire Demon to breathe slightly. He actually injured the Fire Demon King? The Fire Lotus King was no less shocked than the Fire Demon King herself. She and the Fire Demon King were at loggerheads, so she naturally knew the Fire Demon King's strength very well. Not to mention that Ji Dong's demonic power wasn't even at 9 crowns. Even if it was her, it wouldn't be easy to injure the Fire Demon King. Big sister, what kind of monster did you train? You actually injured me. The Fire Demon King roared angrily. Even though he was also of the fire attribute, his right hand was still completely numb after suffering such a heavy blow. At this moment, he had temporarily lost the ability to fight. Ji Dong didn't know that the Fire Demon King's most powerful ability was mainly concentrated in his 2 hands. He accidentally injured the Fire Demon King's right hand, which immediately limited the Fire Demon King's strength to a certain extent. Ji Dong's attack just now was definitely after careful consideration. After coming to the core world, he was very clear that he would definitely meet powerful experts from the core world in the future. Especially after knowing the existence of these 3 Saint-Tier experts, he had been thinking about how to injure or even defeat these Saint-Tier experts. After thinking about it every day, he finally found the final destination when the 2 elemental bodies displayed the Sun and Moon universe realm and shocked the entire Fire Demon race. At that moment, Ji Dong had already closed in front of the Fire Demon King. His most powerful attack should be the Fire God Sword. With his current cultivation, he was completely capable of condensing the power of the Fire God Sword on his fist and using the God-destroying strike. If this was the surface world, such an attack would undoubtedly be more powerful, much more powerful than the Sun and Moon universe realm that entered the opponent's body. However, this was the core world. Every expert in the core world had the ability of fire attribute. The fire magic in their bodies was more profound than his. Such a special characteristic made Ji Dong's attack choice change. That's right, the super ultimate skill Sun and Moon universe realm required the fusion of yin and yang, and then the brilliant sun cone and the ice of ghostly flames collided. However, it must be noted that the collision between the brilliant sun cone and the ice of ghostly flames was only guiding the power of this super ultimate skill. With Ji Dong's current cultivation, this Sun and Moon universe realm was an area of effect high-level super ultimate skill. Therefore, if Ji Dong used it in the outside world, during the process of using it, this super ultimate skill would have to devour a huge amount of magic power from Ji Dong. He even had to activate the magic power in the preservation array in order to support this skill perfectly. To reach the level of high-level super ultimate skill, Ji Dong had to rely on a series of amplifications such as Tai Chi demonic territory and condense the array to complete it. After all, his magic power was still far from a high-level super ultimate skill. A sun and moon universe realm that released all its power might not be able to suck up Ji-dong's magic power, but there would not be much left for him. This was also why Ji-dong tried not to use super ultimate skills in battle. The consumption was too high. But his current opponent was the Fire Demon King. After Ji-dong blasted these two ultimate skills into the Fire Demon King's body in the way of God-slaying blow, he immediately cut off the connection between himself and these two skills. After the collision between the brilliant sun cone and the ice of ghostly flames, it naturally would not affect the guidance of the sun and moon universe realm because of Ji-dong's withdrawal. If Ji-dong did this in the outside world, this super ultimate skill would definitely not be completed because there was no follow-up magic support. However, the place where they exploded at this time was inside the Fire Demon King's body. There was no fire element provided by Ji-dong to absorb. Was there no fire element provided by the Fire Demon King? As a result, this sun and moon universe realm, which was equivalent to a high-level super ultimate skill, was formed completely by absorbing the magic power of the Fire Demon King. Chapter 557. Ji-dong relied on the two ultimate skills to trigger the Sun and Moon universe. It could be said that he bombarded himself with the Fire Demon King's own mana. The mana in the Fire Demon King's right palm was greatly absorbed, which naturally caused the defense of his right palm to decline. Without the support of mana, the rest could only be resisted by the body of a high-level saint-level expert, and then bear the bombardment from the inside out of the high-level ultimate skill. Even the Fire Demon King couldn't control it, and the mana overflowed after the terrifying skill broke out. This meant that his palm had been completely swallowed by this skill. Although the strong physique of a high-level saint-level expert prevented his right palm from being lost, it was inevitable that he would temporarily lose the ability to fight. From the beginning to the end, what Ji-dong had paid was only the mana of two ordinary ultimate skills. For his mana of level 85, this was nothing. However, the Fire Demon King had consumed the mana of a high-level ultimate skill and suffered the bombardment of a high-level ultimate skill in his body. This was like shooting himself in the foot. This was the best way that Ji-dong came up with to deal with the experts of the core world. On the premise of reducing his own consumption as much as possible, he could give the opponent the greatest damage. With his own strength, he could at most display an attack at the level of a high-level ultimate skill. It turned out that he had succeeded. Of course, this method could only be used on the experts of the core world. If it was a demon master or magical beast that was not of the fire attribute, this super ultimate skill would not be formed at all. Moreover, Ji-dong's fighting method was still very restrictive and extremely dangerous. Only by attacking in front of the opponent and using the god-slaying blow to hit the opponent's body could it be effective. If the ultimate skill collided outside the opponent's body, naturally it would be impossible to absorb the opponent's mana, and the attack power would be much weaker because it was outside the body. In a flash, the Fire Demon King had already understood what Ji-dong had done. In addition to shock and anger, he also felt a little admiration in his heart. At the same time, it also made him more eager for the yin and yang integration. If it wasn't for the yin and yang integration, how could Ji-dong use such a method to hurt him? He was just an 8-crown demon master, but he could exert such a strong combat power. Putting aside the weird skill that could attack his body with mana, if he could also yin and yang integration, how strong would his combat power be? Therefore, although the Fire Demon King was angry because of his injury, he was even more determined not to kill Ji-dong. Nothing was more important to him than obtaining the secret of yin and yang integration. In fact, in the core world, there were races that could carry out yin and yang integration. Fire Spirit race and Fire Lotus race could, but unfortunately, the yin and yang integration of the Fire Spirit race was their soul. That special method could not be completed unless the Fire Demon King was willing to give up his own body. The yin and yang integration of the Fire Lotus race came from their bodies that grew up on the 18th floor of the core world. Their yin and yang integration was already there from the day they were born. This kind of integration could not be replicated by the Fire Demon King. In terms of talent, the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King were actually far inferior to him. However, it was because of the yin and yang integration that they were as famous as him. How could the Fire Demon King not have a strong expectation for the yin and yang integration of his race? Ji Dong used the skills of two kings. His ability was almost the same as his race. Ji Dong would never imagine that he was now a treasure in the Fire Demon King's heart. He was reluctant to kill him. Of course, not killing him didn't mean that the Fire Demon King wouldn't hurt him, especially after he was injured. The Fire Demon King had already decided to teach this human boy a deep lesson. The eyes of the Fire Demon King changed strangely at this moment. His right eye shone like a sun, and an extremely strong golden light burst out in an instant. Suddenly, the sky on the left side of his body turned golden. Even Ji Dong had to look away and didn't dare to look at his dazzling golden right eye. The left eye of the Fire Demon King turned black at the same time. It was extremely deep, like a black hole. The space on the left side of his body also changed color in an instant. The range of the golden and black colors wasn't very large, but it was enough to include Ji Dong, but it didn't affect the other two sides of the battlefield. Demon Domain. This was the demon domain of the Fire Demon King, and the two demon domains bloomed at the same time. Ji Dong stood opposite the Fire Demon King in the air. In other words, the Yang Fire attribute demon domain of the Fire Demon King fell on the side where he was used to using Yin Fire, and the other side was the same. The terrifying pressure made the fire elements in the air seem to be crushing Ji Dong's body. However, the power of this demon domain seemed to be like Ji Dong suffering from the erosion of a high-level ultimate skill. This feeling was indescribable in words. This was the true strength of a high-level Saint tier. The Fire Demon King was angry, and he finally wanted to deal with Ji Dong with all his might. On the other side, the Saint tier Fire Demon was also facing the same situation. Its huge body could no longer be seen as it was completely covered by the red lotuses floating in the air. Just like the Fire Spirit King and Hong Yan's side, no one could see the situation on the battlefield over there. Due to the difference in magic power, Ji Dong couldn't move at all. Even if he wanted to vent the attack of the sixth curse in the air like before, he couldn't do it. It seemed that he could only bear the attack of the Fire Demon King and let himself be slaughtered. Is that really the case? No, of course not. As early as when he was about to face the Fire Devil King, Ji Dong understood that the situation might occur when he was about to face the Fire Devil King's high-rank demon domain. The reality was similar to what he had expected, and he had already thought of a countermeasure. The gold and black light also rose from his body. Of course, compared to the Fire Demon King, it was much weaker. However, his gold and black light were not as distinct as the Fire Demon King. They hovered in an instant and merged into each other, turning into a Tai Chi pattern that appeared behind Ji Dong. Facing the powerful pressure of the Fire Demon King's demon domain, although Ji Dong couldn't expand the range of his Tai Chi demon domain, it was no problem for him to cover himself. That's right, the Fire Demon King's magic power was many times stronger than his. However, as the saying goes, everything has its conqueror. As soon as the Tai Chi demon domain appeared, the Fire Demon King's tyrannical suppression actually lost its effect on Ji Dong. No matter how powerful the Fire Demon King's demon domain was, the two extreme attributes of flames were separated. However, Ji Dong's demon domain was a complete fusion of yin and yang. At this moment, he was like the core of the Fire Demon King's two demon domains. No matter how powerful the Fire Demon King's demon domain was, it would never destroy its own people. In the third demon domain, the Fire Demon King only felt a strange feeling in his heart. Seeing Ji Dong release the third demon domain, if he was a little hesitant before, he was now completely sure that the human in front of him had completely fused the yin and yang flames. At the core of the Tai Chi demon domain, wasn't it the chaotic flame that he had been looking forward to? At this moment, a deep dragon roar sounded. The huge body of the sacred evolution fire dragon seemed to be separated from Jidong's Tai Chi demon domain. Carried Jidong and released its Tai Chi demon domain and the yin and yang flames, complementing Jidong's Tai Chi demon domain. This was not the end. Immediately after, a loud phoenix cry sounded. The eclipse phoenix were drilled out of Jidong's wrist and rose above Jidong's head. Another Tai Chi demon domain was formed. The three demon domains lined up and instantly connected with each other. The originally sluggish Tai Chi demon domain began to operate rapidly under the huge infusion of demon power. The Fire Demon King was shocked to find that when the Tai Chi demon domain of Jidong and the Dragon Phoenix rotated, a part of the demon domain that he released would be absorbed by them. It wasn't absorbed into his body, but revolved around the periphery of their demon domain. The original Tai Chi demon domain would weaken under the huge demon power. "Kid, you've brought me too many surprises." Without the slightest hesitation, any more hesitation would allow Jidong and the others to borrow more magic power from him. The Fire Devil King instantly retreated to his two demon domains. However, as soon as he retreated, the momentum reversed instantly. Instead, the Tai Chi demon domain reversed and enveloped him. A long roar came from Jidong's mouth. The opportunity he had created was probably the last opportunity. It had finally arrived. A dazzling red light bloomed from Jidong's hands above his head. The red light only burned for 4 meters before stopping. However, all three Tai Chi demon domains, as well as all the demon power that he had just borrowed from the Fire Demon King, swarmed towards the 4-feet-long red light. Jidong had long been prepared. When he retreated previously, he was already ready to make a move. At this moment, what he released was everything he could mobilize. The trump card that he had hidden previously was all released. This was his strongest attack, an attack that was completely at the saint level. It was also an attack that he didn't dare to try before he had a saint-level body. Jidong's main body, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, and the Eclipse Phoenix all released the Tai Chi Demon Domain and the Yin-Yang Double Fire Formation. All the demon power output was condensed under the command of Jidong's powerful soul. There was also the demon power stored in his continuation formation. Previously, he had used the Tai Chi Demon Domain to absorb a portion of the demon power that belonged to the Fire Demon King. Everything came to a conclusion. With Jidong's current ability and own demon power, it was impossible for him to control such a huge amount of demon power, let alone compress it. However, he still had the final trump card, the artifact from the Lord, the Fire God's Sword. The existence of the Fire God's Sword completely solved the problem of being unable to mobilize a huge amount of demon power. All the demon power became nutrients to nourish it. As the weapon of the Lord, it would have no problem absorbing even more demon power. Although the sword was only released to a length of 4 feet, it had already become the core of the entire sky at this moment. Even the other 2 battlefields had temporarily stopped because of its appearance. This sword was originally prepared by Jidong for the geocentric powerhouse. If the previous selection method had not changed, there was no doubt that the person who would receive this sword would be the saint-level fire demon. Even the Fire Demon King had to take it head-on under Jidong's ingenious control and operation. If it was the saint-level fire demon, this sword would very likely bring Jidong his first victory over a saint-level powerhouse. The Fire Demon King was shocked. He was really shocked. A human with such insignificant demon power could actually perform an attack that made him tremble. How was this possible? How was this possible? The Fire Devil King was, after all, the Fire Devil King. The moment he saw Jidong's final trump card, the Fire God's Sword, appear, his first thought was to stop him. He must stop him. He couldn't let him unleash this attack. The Fire Demon King's left hand moved, and a dark purple-black pillar of light spread from his side towards Jidong at lightning speed. It was the ultimate skill, the great silent ice flame. Even if part of the demon power had been absorbed by Ji Dong and his body had just been withdrawn back into the demon domain, the great silent ice flame released by the Fire Demon King with the strength of a high-level saint level was enough to have the power of a high-level ultimate skill. As long as the process of the Fire God's sword absorbing the demon power was interrupted, Ji Dong would definitely lose. However, Ji Dong's preparations were much more ample than anyone could have imagined. Of course, he didn't know that he would be facing the Fire Devil King today, but his estimation of the Earth's core expert wasn't the slightest bit weaker. Since his final trump card had already appeared, how could he let the Fire Devil King interrupt him and ruin all his efforts? A sparkling red ball bounced out from Ji Dong's chest and abdomen. It flew out completely with the power of his waist and abdomen. At this moment, all of Ji Dong's demon power was condensed in the Fire God's sword in his hands. This ball of red light didn't have any assistance of demon power. It was just the simplest power of Ji Dong's saint-level body to bounce it out. The Fire Demon King saw it clearly. It was a small red bottle. He was very familiar with the material. It was the jade of the earth that was monopolized by the Fire Lotus tribe. There seemed to be a special liquid swaying in the jade of the earth. Although the jade of the earth was good, what could such a small piece of jade of the earth do? The answer, in the next moment, was already displayed in front of him. When that little bottle and his ice of flame collided, an incomparable roar sounded out. The piercing golden light was like an incomparably sturdy shield, blocking the path of the ice of flame. It was the Flame Monarch Chow's killing move, the great brilliant sun cone. Yes, after Ji Dong obtained the first batch of jade of the earth from the Fire Lotus tribe, he used a short period of time to create such an irregular bottle for today's battle. It contained high-grade whiskey, and the bottom of the bottle was engraved with the 5 elements formation. It was this top-grade jade of the earth that stored the great brilliant sun cone released by Ji Dong. This life-saving move finally played a decisive role at this moment. Chapter 558. The great brilliant sun, all stored in the bottle of the jade of the earth, was a mid-level sure-kill technique. It was very lacking compared to the high-level great serene flame ice, but it wasn't working together with Ji Dong. Instead, it existed on its own. Hence, even though it wasn't enough to completely negate the power of the great serene flame ice, it was enough to stop the great serene flame ice from advancing and even change the direction of its attack. All Ji Dong needed was this short period of time. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon and the Eclipse Phoenix lost their luster at the same time. They could only rely on their instincts to float in the sky. At this moment, an indescribable red color had already transformed into a shocking rainbow that slashed forward. Freeze. The entire space on the 15th level seemed to freeze because of this slash. The remaining demonic power of the Fire Devil King's great serene flame ice actually vaporized when it came into contact with that red light. One end of that shocking rainbow was Ji Dong's Vulcan sword, while the other end had already landed on the Fire Devil King's body the instant the air froze. However, when the Fire God slash was unleashed, Ji Dong's pupils constricted violently. He finally felt the true power of a high-level martial sage. The Fire Devil King's 12-meter-tall body had already transformed into a 2-meter-tall human form when the great brilliant sun and the great serene flame ice collided, blocking all spiritual undulations and vision. All the flames on his body seemed to have disappeared, leaving only a body that was half gold and half black. His appearance was very mediocre, and he looked just like an ordinary human. At this moment, his hands were clasped above his head and clamped down on the Vulcan sword that was descending from the sky. The monstrous killing intent dissipated the instant the Vulcan sword was clamped down, and the Fire Devil King's body that had transformed into a humanoid form had already turned completely red. With a soft clang, something unimaginable happened to Ji Dong. In the end, the red light still fell and fiercely slashed at the top of the Fire Devil King's head. Moreover, it flashed past and cut open his two-colored body. This slash left a 1,000-meter-deep gorge on the 15th floor of the core world. However, at the same time, the split body of the Fire Demon King split into two. One was as black as ink, while the other was as shiny as gold. Yes, two bodies filled with their respective ultimate element. Without the aura of a high-level saint-level expert, what was left was still the saint-level and low-level saint-level. The two low-level saint-level Fire Demon Kings had already appeared on both sides of Ji-dong as if they had teleported. 1,000 years of cultivation destroyed in an instant. Go to hell. They spoke at the same time, and their voices were cold and emotionless. Their fists also carried the terrifying attack power of a low-level saint-level expert as they blasted towards Ji-dong, whose mana was almost depleted, but was still holding onto the Vulcan sword. Regardless of how much benefit Ji-dong's yin-yang dual fire fusion could bring, the Fire Demon King had completely fallen into a berserk state when its body was severely injured. At this moment, it split into two and turned into a black and gold Fire Demon King. Not to mention Ji-dong, even the Fire Spirit King and Fire Lotus King who were still fighting were stunned. No one in the entire core world, or even the Fire Demon race, understood what was going on. It's over. That was Ji-dong's first reaction when he saw the Fire Demon King charging towards him. He had never thought that his all-out attack would result in such an outcome. His all-out attack had actually split the Fire Demon King into two. Even though their individual strength had been greatly weakened, they were still two saint-tier existences. At this moment, Ji-dong no longer had the strength to resist. He could only watch as the yin and yang Fire Demon Kings charged towards him with incomparably terrifying power. His saint-tier body couldn't withstand such an attack either. Death was the only outcome for him. No matter how smart Ji-dong was and how precise his plans were, everything had already exceeded his calculations. The heavenly stem saints were far away, and their power was insufficient to stop the Fire Demon King's attack on Ji-dong. They could only watch as the golden and black lights engulfed Ji-dong's body. At this moment, the only person who was calm was Chen Sichuan. When she saw the Fire Demon King splitting into two, rushing towards Hyoheim and eventually engulfing Ji-dong's body, a faint smile appeared on her beautiful face. Unfortunately, no one noticed her at this moment, let alone the change in her emotions. Everyone's attention was completely attracted by the golden and black light. It's over. This thought also appeared in the minds of every heavenly stem saint. They even forgot to use the five-element yin-yang boundary to escape this place. Their hearts felt like they were being torn apart by a massive force, and everyone had already fallen into a suffocating state. Miracles usually happened when everyone thought it was impossible. In the eyes of his comrades, Ji-dong was a miracle maker. However, they still couldn't believe what happened next. In less than a second after the black and gold lights engulfed Ji-dong's body, an unparalleled boom suddenly erupted from where Ji-dong was previously floating. The two Fire Demon Kings that had split into two were sent flying like cannonballs. They flew for 200 meters before they stabilized themselves. Even the flames on their bodies had disappeared at this moment. What was left was endless horror on their sinister faces. Ji-dong did not die, nor did he turn into ashes like the Earth's core experts had imagined. He was still floating there, quietly floating there, as if nothing had happened. His hands were raised on both sides of his body. His right hand had turned completely golden, and his left hand had turned completely black. He slowly opened his hands, and within his palms, there was a strange light flickering. The light wasn't very intense, but everyone could clearly see that a golden sun had lit up in his right palm, while a black moon had lit up in his left palm. The sun and the moon flickered with a faint light, and behind Ji-dong, two balls of light gradually unfurled and enlarged. An incomparably dignified aura accompanied the unfolding of the 100-meter-tall majestic body, which gradually became more and more solid. The dense fire elemental fluctuations on the 15th floor of the core world were actually being frantically absorbed by the two huge and imposing figures at this moment, causing their luster to become clearer and clearer. Ji-dong was floating there. His eyes were already closed, and the fire god's sword had already been retracted. His arms were still open, as if he was sensing something. In the sky, the battles on the other two sides had already stopped. The Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King had also retracted their demonic domains. Their gazes were all focused on Ji-dong. The dense mana ripples and aura made every expert's eyes filled with astonishment. Because of the dignified aura emitted by the two great lights behind Ji-dong, even the Fire Lotus King and the Fire Spirit King had the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. The two 100-meter-tall lights were finally completely clear. They were clearly the enlarged versions of the Fire Demon King, especially the enlarged versions of his body. Weren't they the figures of the Fire Tyrant King and the Dark Flame Devil King? The lights of the two kings slowly turned around and faced each other. Their four hands were clasped together in the air and were raised high, shrouding Ji-dong's body below. After they appeared, the endless dignified aura was also transmitted into Ji-dong's body, as if the dignified aura was branded on Ji-dong's body. With a plop, a relatively weaker fire demon knelt down in front of Ji-dong in the sky. Then, this situation seemed to be contagious as the clansmen of the fire demon race knelt down one after another. They were simply too familiar with this kind of dignified aura. It was impossible to fake. Even the Queen of the Flaming Bar couldn't do it. Only the two kings who had led them to rule the entire core world for thousands of years could have such a dignified aura. At this moment, they completely didn't think about why this dignified aura would appear on Ji-dong. All they could think about was that their old master had returned. The old master who had led them to stand at the peak of the core world had returned. In the sky, the golden sun and the dark moon in Ji-dong's hands gradually changed. His hands became brighter and brighter, especially the two brands. The golden sun was shining with pure golden light, while the dark moon was surrounded by a ring of purple light. As the light shone, they seemed to become bigger and bigger. When the two balls of light expanded to a diameter of 1 meter, they actually separated from Ji-dong's hands and floated up. With a soft hum, the golden sun and the dark moon instantly rose to the sky of the 15th layer of the core world. Their light covered the entire 15th layer, and was many times more powerful than the demonic power released by the Fire Demon King previously. In particular, the endless dignified aura that was emitted was far from what the Fire Demon King could compare to. Only the two kings back then could release such an aura. The Flame Tyrant King and the Dark Flame Devil King were the pinnacle existences of the Fire Demon race. Although they only had one attribute, they had both cultivated to the peak of the saint tier. At this moment, even the existence of their consciousness was enough to subdue the entire Fire Demon race. The two Fire Demon Kings floating in the sky also slowly landed on the ground. Although they did not kneel on the ground like the other Fire Demons, the anger and negative emotions in their eyes had already disappeared. What was left was only reverence. The Saint-tier fire demon that had fought with the Fire Lotus King had already landed among the clansmen and also knelt on both knees, worshipping there without moving. The golden sun and the dark moon in the sky gradually approached each other. As they approached each other, the illusory figures of the two kings behind Ji-dong became extremely solid. Under the illumination of the golden sun and the dark moon, their tightly clasped hands seemed to freeze. Their gazes met, filled with understanding, as well as an unimaginable harmony among the Fire Demon clansmen. At this moment, the light in the sky seemed to affect the hearts of every Fire Demon clansman. When they stole glances at each other, the barrier between the Dark Flame Devil and the Blazing Flame Devil seemed to be gradually disappearing due to the influence of the light in the sky. The golden sun and the dark moon finally drifted together. Their originally incompatible light actually started to entangle with each other. At this moment, A ball of milky white light shot out from Jidong's mouth. This light shot up and landed right in the middle of the golden sun and dark moon. Its appearance was like glue, firmly attracting the golden sun and dark moon together. The dense mana fluctuations instantly rose to the peak. Yin and Yang were both flames, but they were completely different. However, at this moment they were inseparable. Regardless of whether it was the golden sun or the dark moon, they actually melted in the air silently. Then, they blended together, fused together, and started spinning. Only the ball of milky white light in the center did not change. The spinning speed became faster and faster. Gradually, a Tai Chi diagram of Yin and Yang appeared in the air. The gold gradually became white, while the black became even darker. Wasn't it the Tai Chi diagram? Jidong spoke slowly. His voice changed, becoming extremely dignified and old. At the beginning of the chaos, it was divided into Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang were originally one. However, my clan was ignorant and forcefully separated Yin and Yang, causing Yin and Yang to be out of balance. Not only were we forever unable to pursue the peak of that power, our inner world was also affected due to the imbalance of Yin and Yang, resulting in the internal strife back then. Fortunately, the appearance of the flaming bar Empress prevented the two of us from committing a grave mistake. Afterwards, we were branded into the human Jidong's body and fused with him. Although we lost the great power we once had, our souls were sublimated, and we finally understood the profound meaning behind the fusion of Yin and Yang. Solitary Yin does not grow, solitary Yang does not grow. From today onwards, the inheritor of the two of us will control the entire clan and pass this Yin and Yang cultivation method to you. He will also inherit the mantle of the goddess of the flaming bar and work hard for the peace of the core world. Those who go against this will have their souls disintegrated. Darkness, bright flame, come forward. Yes, master. The two fire devil kings that were slashed apart by Jidong's sword took a step forward at the same time. Finally, they knelt on the ground as if a mountain of gold had been pushed down and a jade pillar toppled. They kowtowed towards Jidong, who was in the air. At this moment, they no longer had any doubts, because the only people who knew their names were the Flame Tyrant King and the Dark Flame Devil King. The dignified voice sounded again. Jidong has inherited both of our brands. With this brand protecting him, even if the people of our clan become gods, they will not be able to harm him. You have done well. What happened today is not your fault, but the separation of Yin and Yang in our clan. From today onwards, you must properly assist Jidong. Chapter 559. The majestic voice of the king reverberated in the air. Our soul consciousness will also truly merge with Jidong. Everything will be led by him, and he will definitely help our fire demon race to find the true path forward. Master! The two fire demon kings cried out in sorrow at the same time. Don't be sad. We haven't disappeared. Jidong is our inheritance. As long as he is given enough time, he will definitely become a god. Even the Queen of the Flaming Bar will be his woman. The Holy Church of the Flaming Bar doesn't need an acting bishop anymore. No one is more suitable than him to be the bishop. The majestic voice gradually faded, and the black and white Tai Chi yin-yang fish in the air also slowly descended and floated towards Jidong. At this moment there was a sudden change. A strange red light suddenly flew towards Jidong's head at an unparalleled speed. Its target was Jidong's forehead. Its speed was so fast that it was even faster than the Tai Chi yin-yang fish that was descending from the sky. It was obvious that it wanted to stop Jidong from merging with the Tai Chi yin-yang fish. Unfortunately, everything seemed to have been destined. Just when the red light was less than 30 meters away from Jidong, a gorgeous red lotus suddenly appeared in front of Jidong and blocked the red light's path. Fire Lotus King, are you crazy? The Fire Spirit King's voice was filled with shock and anger. The strange red light also revealed its true form. Wasn't it the Fire Spirit King? The Fire Lotus King looked at the Fire Spirit King coldly and said, "I'm not crazy. You're the crazy one. Didn't you hear what the two kings said just now?" The Fire Spirit King said anxiously, "It's because I heard it that I have to do this. Otherwise, when the fire demon race completes the yin and yang fusion, how will there be space for our race to survive?" During their short conversation, the Tai Chi yin-yang fish finally landed and disappeared after being branded on Ji Dong's chest. Ji Dong's body trembled slightly, but he still floated there. The two kings' virtual images behind him quickly overlapped and then turned into a ball of light that merged back into his body. The golden sun and dark moon that appeared on his palm had completely disappeared. The Fire Lotus King said faintly, "The two kings are right. Ji Dong not only inherited their imprint, but he is also the husband of the Flaming Bar. Although he is a human, he is also a member of the Fire Lotus race. How can we allow you to hurt him?" What's more, the two kings also said that the reason why the fire demon race has done so many wrong things is mainly because they have never been able to fuse yin and yang. They took the wrong path, which caused their race to be violent. When they learn the yin and yang fusion, perhaps everything will change. The Fire Spirit King's eyes flickered with uncertainty. He said in a deep voice, "This is only the two kings' one-sided statement. You've only been on the 15th level for a short time, so you don't know what happened back then. Back then, when the fire demon race ruled the entire core world, the core world could be said to be in a state of chaos. I can't let such a situation happen again. How can I believe the two kings' one-sided statement? What's more, Fire Lotus King, you're too gullible. How can you be sure that this human named Ji Dong is really the lover of the Flaming Bar Queen? This is simply unimaginable. With Her Majesty's power, how can she have anything to do with a human?" Fire Lotus King Lion sighed and said, "It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. This is the truth. Moreover, when Ji Dong came to the Flaming Bar to participate in the Holy Church's proxy bishop selection celebration, I already knew about the relationship between him and Her Majesty. There is a soul memory. When Ji Dong wakes up, I can ask him to show it to you." "Can't a soul memory be faked?" The Fire Spirit King still had a face of disbelief. He had experienced the period when the two kings ruled. The darkness of the entire core world during that period was something he could never forget. That kind of pain could not be described with words. At this very moment, seeing that the fire demon race was showing signs of recovery, how could he not stop it? At this moment, all of a sudden, Fire Lotus King's body trembled violently. She turned around abruptly and her pupils instantly contracted rapidly. Right behind her, Ji Dong's body had completely turned golden red. It was the color that belonged to his unique brilliance. Within the golden red color, a faint radiance was emitted continuously. At the same time, golden red lotus seeds flew out from his body and appeared in front of all the powerhouses in the core world. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A total of 9 lotus seeds revolved around Ji Dong's body quietly. Every lotus seed emitted the same aura. Compared to the endless majesty of the two kings, this aura was gentler, but it was of a higher realm. The more powerful the powerhouse in the core world, the more they could feel it. Moreover, they had a deeper memory of this aura. This was clearly the aura of the Flaming Bar Queen. After the entire fire demon race knelt down, when the 9 natal red lotus seeds of the Flaming Bar appeared, the members of the Fire Lotus race also knelt down one after another under Hong Yan's lead. They looked at Ji Dong, or more accurately, at the 9 lotus seeds revolving around Ji Dong's body. Their gazes became extremely passionate. After losing contact with the Flaming Bar Queen for such a long time, they finally saw a part of the body of the great Flaming Bar Queen again. They could feel the extremely powerful yet extremely gentle aura again. Yes, this was the natal lotus seed of the Flaming Bar Queen. The Fire Spirit King was also stunned. There was no need for the Fire Lotus King to explain anything. To the Fire Lotus race, nothing was more important than the natal red lotus seed. The flaming bar queen had even given the natal red lotus seed to Jidong. This was already enough to prove many things. The queen of the flaming bar queen was really gone. This was the first thought that came to the Fire Lotus King's mind at that moment. The undulations of his soul suddenly became intense. The Fire Lotus King slowly bowed to the Fire Spirit King and said, "Senior, ever since Her Majesty left, thank you for your concern and help to the Fire Lotus race. Without you, we might have been devoured by the Fire Demon race. Now that the natal red lotus seed of Her Majesty has reappeared in the core world, we can only support the owner of the seed no matter what. You should be very clear that if Her Majesty isn't willing, even a divine king can't take her natal red lotus seed for himself. Today, isn't Jidong also representing Her Majesty to come to the core world? There's no need to say anything more about the victory of the last selection. The Fire Lotus race has decided to fully support Jidong as the leader of the Holy Church. There's no substitute." After hearing the Fire Lotus King's words, the Fire Spirit King's anxious gaze gradually calmed down. On the ground, the two Fire Demon Kings also stood up at the same time. They looked at the Fire Lotus King and the Fire Spirit King in the sky and said in unison, "We are the same. We unconditionally support Jidong to lead us and even the entire core world. The Fire Demon race will definitely follow him for life." The Fire Spirit King's gaze finally became silent. At this moment, the two kings' imprints had completely integrated with Jidong's body. No matter what he did, he couldn't change this. Moreover, two of the three major races supported Jidong. He even stood out from the selection ceremony for the substitute leader. At this moment, everything was irreversible. The Fire Spirit race was originally in the core world. What else could it say at this moment? The Fire Spirit King let out a long sigh and said, "Since all of you have decided and he has obtained the final victory in the selection, then let him be the leader. However, the word substitute can't be removed for the time being. After all, the Holy Church leader of the Flaming Bar concerns the survival of the entire core world. We have to observe him for a period of time before making a decision. Moreover, his current strength is not enough for him to fully take on the position of the Holy Church leader." What the Fire Spirit King said was very pertinent. In terms of strength, even the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King wouldn't stand a chance if they faced Jidong carefully, let alone the Fire Demon King, who was originally a high-level sage. The Fire Lotus King nodded slowly, acknowledging the Fire Spirit King's intention. The two Fire Demon Kings snorted. Obviously, they weren't interested in the Fire Spirit King's words. However, their bodies were separated by Jidong's sword, so their strength had become primary level sage. Two primary level sage might not be a match for a middle level sage. Therefore, although they were dissatisfied, there was nothing else they could do. The Fire Lotus King stole a glance at Chen Sichuan, who was in the crowd, but Chen Sichuan didn't look at her. The Fire Lotus King couldn't help but recall what Chen Sichuan said to her that day. That day, Chen Sichuan told the Fire Lotus King that Jidong was the true inheritor of the two kings. It was such a simple sentence that made the Fire Lotus King believe that Jidong would be able to achieve good results in the selection. Rather than saying that Jidong's strength was shocking and he was able to obtain the final victory in the selection, it would be better to say that the Flaming Bar's ingenious arrangement had already begun when the two kings' imprints were imparted to him. After the Flaming Bar killed the Flame Tyrant King and the Dark Flame Devil King, the two kings were martial saints after all. Although their physical bodies were destroyed, their martial saints' souls weren't so easily destroyed. Hence, the Flaming Bar couldn't bear to kill them completely. Hence, the Flaming Bar reached an agreement with the two kings to release all of their abilities, leaving only their soul memories. If there was a suitable opportunity, the Flaming Bar would help them pass on these memories. Later on, the Flaming Bar got to know Jidong. After carefully observing Jidong's character, In addition to the fact that the two kings liked Ji Dong's personality, they gave the two kings imprints to Ji Dong. It wasn't as simple as just memories, but also the two kings' soul consciousness. It was a powerful soul consciousness that was only a step away from being promoted to divine consciousness. If there wasn't such a powerful soul consciousness that had been nourishing Ji Dong's soul world, he wouldn't have been able to possess a martial saint intermediate soul consciousness at the age of 20, no matter how many fortuitous encounters he had. If the opponent Ji Dong was facing was someone else, Chen Sichuan would of course be extremely nervous. However, he was facing the Fire Devil King. Not to mention that the Fire Devil King was only a martial saint advanced. Even if it was a martial saint peak, it wouldn't be able to hurt Ji Dong. Any skills used by the Fire Demon clan couldn't hurt Ji Dong because of the two kings' imprints on him. Hence, no matter what happened, the Flaming Bar was always calm. As for the secret of the Fire Devil King itself, the Flaming Bar also knew about it. In the beginning, the Flame King and the Dark Flame Devil King each had a follower, which was the current two Fire Devil Kings. They had followed the two kings for many years. Under the two kings' cultivation, their strength improved extremely quickly. After the Flaming Bar ruled the core world, they secretly cultivated and used a special method to temporarily merge. Their strength increased rapidly and they unified the Fire Demon clan. As for the 10-meter-tall martial saint-level Fire Demon, it was an experimental product. After losing the lives of more than 10 pairs of clansmen, they finally cultivated such a temporary fusion body that was in the same physical state as them, and thus also possessed the martial saint-level strength. Ji Dong slashed with the Fire God's sword. Although he couldn't kill them, he cut off the connection between them. In this way, they also revealed their original strength. Previously, when they said that 1,000 years of cultivation was destroyed in a day, they were not joking. In order to temporarily merge and improve their strength, they really paid the price of 1,000 years to complete it. However, at this moment all of this was no longer important. Hearing his master's voice again, and his master's life imprint had been passed down, Noisewater was happier than them. It could be said that the meaning of these two Fire Demon Kings' existence was to inherit the will of the two great lords and make the Fire Demon race stronger again. Now that the two great lords had given their orders and passed down their life imprints to Ji Dong, their original hostility towards Ji Dong and the idea of using him had long disappeared, and they became the most loyal ones. They were too familiar with the two great lords, more familiar with them than anyone else. Because of this, when the two great lords' voices appeared, they did not have any doubts at all. Originally, Ji Dong's greatest enemy was the Fire Demon race. However, from this moment onwards, his firmest ally in the core world was also the Fire Demon race. In fact, they were even more supportive of him than the Fire Lotus race. Absolutely unconditional support. On the Fire Lotus race's side, it could be said that the Fire Lotus race acknowledged Ji Dong because of the love between him and the Flaming Bar. On the other hand, the Fire Demon race directly treated him as their clan leader. However, the cultivation of the two Fire Demon Kings was not as strong as when they merged. Otherwise, when they saw the Fire Spirit King about to attack Ji Dong, they would have rushed up long ago. Of course, if the Fire Lotus King did not stop them, they would definitely not let the Fire Spirit King hurt Ji Dong even if they died. At this moment, Ji Dong, who was floating in midair, slowly opened his eyes. The Divine Fire Saint King armor on his body slowly disappeared, revealing his body. Chapter 560. The clothes on Ji Dong's upper body had already turned into ashes. His black hair was tied behind his back and his eyes were shining with a golden-red luster. On his chest, the yin-yang fish that was shining with a dazzling black and white luster was quietly rotating in front of his chest. Although he had his eyes closed previously, he was very clear about everything that was happening in the outside world. At this moment, he wasn't happy that he had become the acting bishop of the Flaming Bar. Instead, He was looking at the 9 natal red lotus seeds of the flaming bar revolving around him in a daze. Let's go down. The Fire Spirit King nodded towards the Fire Lotus King. The 2 supreme elders floated down at the same time and landed beside the 2 Fire Demon Kings. The 4 geocentric saints looked at each other and nodded. The Fire Spirit King said loudly, "Geocentric saints greet the acting bishop." As he spoke, the 4 saint-rank powerhouses knelt down at the same time under his lead. Even they had knelt down, how could the geocentric saints and the core elders of the other races not kneel down as well? In an instant, at the entrance of the 15th floor of the geocentric world, apart from the heavenly stem saints, everyone from the geocentric world knelt down and kowtowed towards Ji-dong. The Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King both knelt down on one knee. They were the supreme elders of the flaming bar and had different statuses, so it was enough for them to kneel down on one knee. However, the Fire Demon King was even more thorough. The 2 Fire Demon Kings knelt down on both knees and their eyes shone with unconcealable excitement. They actually led the entire race to kowtow towards Ji-dong. Intense mana waves reverberated in the air. Ji-dong smiled. He could feel the pious aura in the air, especially from the sincere worship from the Fire Demon King and the Fire Lotus race. However, he felt so sour in his heart. He thought to himself, "Flaming Bar, do you see this? I finally did it. I didn't disappoint you. I've finally inherited your position as the leader of the Flaming Bar Church. I know what you want to see the most. Don't worry, I'll definitely accomplish everything for you. The core needs peace. I won't bring war here, nor will I destroy everything in the core. I'll definitely accomplish what you want. This will never, ever change. Flaming Bar, I've already helped you solve the problem in the core world. Can I go look for you soon? Don't worry, I'll do my best to nurture an expert who's strong enough to take over the position of sect leader. Then, I'll find 10 types of wine and settle the matter of the 5 elements continent. When that time comes, I'll be able to find you in peace. 10 years is a long time. I can't wait. I really can't wait. Do you know how much suffering I have to endure every day?" Chen Sichuan looked into Ji-dong's eyes. At this moment, wasn't her heart fluctuating just like Ji-dong's? "My Ji-dong, you've finally inherited my position in the core world. Even though you're not strong enough now, I believe that one day, you'll become stronger than me. You have many qualities that I don't. Hurry up and become stronger. With the core world as your backing, even if we lose the war in the surface world, you'll still have a place to stay, won't you? This is what I hope to see the most. From the day I became Chen Sichuan, your safety has already surpassed the core world in my heart. I'm no longer the queen of the core world, I'm just a little woman who loves you. Hey Sichuan, don't look at me. Your eyes are dripping with tenderness." Meow Meow nudged Chen Sichuan lightly and chuckled. Weren't the heavenly stem holy disciples the ones who experienced the most emotional ups and downs? Who would have thought that the final outcome would be like this? They thought that Ji-dong was going to die in the hands of the Fire Devil King. Who knew that not only did Ji-dong come back from the dead, but he also became the acting sect leader of the Holy Church of Flaming Bar and the ruler of the entire 18 levels of the core world in such a short period of time. Do you dare to believe it? Fury smiled. Little junior brother's identity as the son-in-law of the Earth's core has finally taken effect. I thought we were going to be stuck here. Little junior brother has gained another title. I think he probably doesn't even remember how many titles he has now. Yao Qianshu let out a long sigh and said, "No matter what, we've finally passed this hurdle." Ji-dong slowly landed on the ground. After the 2 great sovereigns' imprints completely fused with his body, all the skills of the 2 sovereigns were imprinted in his mind. Some of them were skills that he knew before, and some that he didn't know before. At the same time, his mana had finally broken through to level 86. As for the experience of actual combat and mana control, it wasn't something that could be measured by levels. To him, The battle with the advanced Saint-Tier Fire Devil King was more valuable than the increase in his mana level. Everyone, get up! Ji-Dong's calm voice could be heard clearly by every Earth's core expert. If Ji-Dong didn't become the acting leader of the Earth's core world, none of the Earth's core experts would be convinced by him. To be able to be here, especially those who had participated in the selection, every single one of them had a higher mana level than him. However, Ji-Dong's incomparably stunning performance in the selection, especially the powerful strength he displayed in the battle with the Fire Devil King, had already earned him the recognition of these Earth's core creatures. Although his mana wasn't very strong, his overall strength wasn't inferior to a normal Saint-Tier expert. The Earth's core experts stood up one after another and looked at Ji-Dong, waiting for him to speak. Ji-Dong said, "Thank you everyone for your love, allowing me to become the acting leader of the Earth's core world's Flaming Bar Holy Church. However, I want to remind everyone, especially the stronger races, if I find out that there is a civil war between the various races in the future, especially in a situation like extermination, then don't blame me for being ruthless. The celebration is over, all the core elders and the elders who are here to observe the ceremony can return." With a simple sentence, he sent away the experts who were not on the 15th floor. Naturally, they didn't dare to say anything else, and after bowing to Hyoheim, they passed through the passageway between the 15th and 14th floors. Although Ji-Dong, the acting leader, could not completely convince them, but with the support of the three great clans, what else did they dare to say? Especially when the Fire Devil King displayed that was close to blind worship, it made these Earth's core experts restrain their emotions. Very quickly, all the Earth's core experts had left. Ji-Dong said, "Fire Devil King, Fire Spirit King, and Fire Lotus King, I want to talk to you." "Yes, let's go to our castle then," the two Fire Devil Kings said in unison. Perhaps it was because they had fused for too long, but whether it was the way they spoke or the way they walked, they were almost exactly the same. The Fire Spirit King glanced at the Fire Lotus King and nodded. Ji-Dong had just inherited the position of the acting leader of the Holy Church, and he also wanted to understand this human further. He was especially curious about Ji-Dong and the Flaming Bar. The clansmen of the three great clans dispersed, and the two Fire Devil Kings brought everyone, including the Heavenly Stem Saints, back to the Fire Demon Clan's castle. Compared to the Fire Lotus Clan's castle, the Fire Demon Clan's castle was almost twice the size, and the various buildings inside were also much more magnificent. Moreover, it could be seen at a glance that the Fire Demon Clan's castle had existed for a much longer time than the Fire Sway Clan's. The Fire Devil King brought everyone back to his living quarters. There was one thing that was similar to the Fire Lotus Clan's. The Fire Devil King's living quarters were also terrifyingly simple, but because of his huge body, his living quarters were also much bigger. Ji-Dong felt the two Fire Devil Kings looking at him fervently, and he couldn't help but find it funny. Were these still the Fire Devil Kings that wanted to enslave and even kill him? Moreover, he could clearly feel that the two Fire Devil Kings' soul ripples weren't fake at all. The Fire Devil King closed the door, scratched his head, and said, "Leader, I heard that the human world pays particular attention to sitting while talking, but we don't have such a saying here. If you want to sit, I'm afraid you can only sit on the ground." The two of them intentionally omitted the word acting, and even seemed to be flattering him. Ji-Dong smiled and shook his head. "It's fine, just stand." As he spoke, his gaze shifted to the Fire Lotus King's pretty face, which was almost the same as the Flaming Bar. "Fire Lotus King, I want to go to the 18th floor of the Earth's core. How can I get there?" The Fire Lotus King was stunned for a moment. "The 18th floor of the Earth's core?" The Fire Devil King hurriedly said, "Leader, you can't go there. Even we can't survive there for too long. These Earth's core Red Lotus can't go back after leaving the 18th floor. Only the Empress of the Flaming Bar and our two masters can go there. The two masters once said that unless it's a creature that originally existed there, It's impossible to enter without the strength of a Saint Realm pinnacle. That's the true Earth's core. The Fire Lotus King glared at the two Fire Devil Kings. You can't go there, but it doesn't mean that leader can't go there. Don't forget that leader has the Empress's 9 natal red lotus seeds. With these seeds, it's enough for you to go to the 18th floor. The Fire Spirit King nodded. Indeed. With the Empress's natal lotus seed as a guard, there shouldn't be a problem. Ji Dong asked, "You're already the most powerful race in the Earth's core world besides the Flaming Bar. I'm very curious. Why did you choose to live in the 15th floor instead of the 16th and 17th floor? Are these two floors as hard to survive as the 18th floor?" The Fire Spirit King nodded. It's not that it's hard to survive, but the fire element in those two floors is different from the floors above. The Fire Spirit King nodded and said, "It's not that it's difficult to survive, but the fire elements in those two layers are different from those in the upper layers. The 16th layer is also called the Dark Flame layer. The entire 16th layer is pitch black and is composed of endless dark flames. The purity of the dark flames is like the ultimate skill of the Dark Flame Devil King. Apart from Her Majesty the Flame Empress, only the Dark Flame Devil King can survive there for a long time. Among the 3 great clans, the Fire Spirit Clan and the Fire Lotus Clan have both yin and yang attributes, so they naturally can't live there. Although the clansmen of the Fire Demon Clan have the Dark Flame attribute, if they want to cultivate there, they need to be at least High Saint Realm and above, which they are far from being able to do. So naturally, no one lives there. The 17th layer is the Bright Flame layer, and the situation is similar to the 16th layer. After listening to the words of the 3 Supreme Elders, Ji Dong couldn't help but have doubts in his heart. Since the 16th, 17th, and 18th floors are so dangerous, how did he survive when he reached the 18th floor without any mana? Although the 18th floor brought him a lot of pressure and such a rich fire element, he didn't feel that his life was threatened. As he thought about it, Ji Dong raised his doubts. The Fire Lotus King was obviously the most qualified to answer his question. Among the Supreme Elders, only he had lived on the 18th floor. He sighed softly and said, "Then it must be Her Majesty's protection. When you first arrived on the 18th floor, Her Majesty must have already discovered your identity as a human before you were teleported over. Hence, she used her own power to suppress the terror of the 18th floor. After that, every time you were teleported over, Her Majesty used the same method to suppress the terror of the fusion of yin and yang on the 18th floor, allowing you to survive there and absorb the pure fire element there. If I'm not wrong, the environment on the 18th floor will gradually become stronger as your power grows. That way, you will always feel the appropriate pressure and absorb enough fire element." Ji Dong's heart trembled. That's right. In the past, every time he went to the core world, he would either be cultivating or paying attention to the Flaming Bar. He never paid attention to this. After the Fire Lotus King's reminder, wasn't it just as she said? The environment on the 18th floor had always given him the same feeling. Furthermore, his cultivation had increased countless times from the time he first arrived until the time he fought Shupness in the Flaming Bar. The fact that the feeling didn't change proved that the environment had changed. When he thought about this, Ji Dong couldn't help but tear up. "Flaming Bar, you've done so much for me silently, but I've never discovered it. I'm so stupid." The Fire Lotus King continued, "After seeing your soul's memory, I'm even more certain of this. You couldn't have survived on the 18th floor. Otherwise, after the battle between the Empress and the Sky God, she wouldn't have used her power to send you back to the surface world." Chapter 561. The Fire Lotus King continued angrily, "The core world is more suitable for your cultivation. If it was possible, why didn't Her Majesty let you stay on the 18th floor until you were strong enough to leave? It's because the environment there is too harsh. Without her suppression, you wouldn't be able to endure it. That's why she teleported you back to the human world." "Don't say any more." Ji Dong interrupted the Fire Lotus King. At that moment, his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. His longing for the flaming bar surged uncontrollably. The sacred ruler armor appeared on its own. What everyone couldn't see was that all the spikes in the sacred ruler armor pierced into Ji Dong's body. Even though they couldn't pierce through his skin, they brought him excruciating pain. However, even though his body was in pain, it couldn't compare to the pain in his heart. Chen Sichuan glanced at the Fire Lotus King sternly and hurried to Ji Dong's side. She grabbed his clenched fist and comforted him with her gentleness. The Fire Lotus King lowered her head. She also felt that she had said too much, but she couldn't help it. Raging Flame was dead, and now there was only Chen Sichuan, and all of this was because of this human in front of her. Even though the love between him and Raging Flame had touched the Fire Lotus King, she had lost her big sister because of this love. She had said so much out of righteous indignation. "I want to go to the 18th floor." Ji Dong shook off Chen Sichuan's hand and said firmly, "I want to go to the 18th floor. I want to see what it's like without the protection of the flaming bar." The Fire Lotus King nodded silently. Ji Dong turned towards the heavenly stem saints and said in a deep voice, "Our training in the Earth's core this time can be considered to have come to an end. Everyone, let's teleport back first. I will stay in the Earth's core for a period of time, but it won't be too long. I will definitely meet up with all of you before the third day of sacrifice." Fury nodded. Putting aside the fact that they wouldn't be of much help to Ji Dong even if they stayed, they weren't fire element magicians. They'd had enough of staying in the core world that was filled with fire element. "Ji Dong, we'll wait for you at Mt. Amansi." Ji Dong said, "Alright, you guys can leave now. It's been hard for everyone to cultivate in the core world. Once we get out, we'll have to adjust ourselves. I'm afraid everyone will need some time to adapt to the outside world." "Ji Dong, let me stay with you, okay?" Chen Sichuan couldn't help but ask. Ji Dong frowned and said, "No, you are of the wood attribute, the environment here is not suitable for you in the first place. Furthermore, I want to go to the 18th level of the Earth's core. How can I bring you along? You can go with the others." His words were filled with no room for doubt. The Fire Lotus King, who was beside him, couldn't stand it anymore. Just as he wanted to say something, Chen Sichuan used her divine sense to touch him, so he didn't say anything. Of course, Ji Dong couldn't make Chen Sichuan stay. Putting the environment aside, he wanted to go to the place where he was with the flaming bar. How could he bring a woman there? In the end, Chen Sichuan teleported away with the Heavenly Stem holy disciples. Before she left, she used her weak divine sense to communicate with the Fire Lotus King. As for what they said, only they knew. Anyway, after Chen Sichuan left, the Fire Lotus King regained his composure. His attitude towards Ji Dong was also respectful and didn't say anything else. The Heavenly Stem holy disciples also left, leaving only Ji Dong and the few supreme elders in the Fire Demon King's castle. The Fire Lotus King asked, "Leader, when do you plan to go to the 18th level?" Ji Dong thought for a while and said, "I have a few things to discuss with you guys. After that, I'll go to the 18th level. After that, I'll return to the human world from there." The Fire Demon King said reluctantly, "Leader, why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Ji Dong smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry. Before I leave, I'll leave a chaotic seed for you. As long as you cultivate according to my instructions with your initial stage martial saint cultivation base, it won't take long for you to achieve something. However, the Fire Demon tribe is a single entity now. If you want a fire demon that can truly integrate yin and yang, I'm afraid you guys can only start from the next generation. I think you guys should be able to understand what I mean. Of course, as long as you guys cultivate according to my instructions and work together, there won't be a problem using the yin and yang fusion demon skill." The two Fire Demon Kings nodded at the same time. Although it was a pity, it was enough for them to use the yin and yang fusion demon skill when they worked together. After listening to Ji-dong's words, the Fire Spirit King also heaved a sigh of relief. According to what Ji-dong said, the Fire Demon tribe wouldn't be able to instantly become stronger in a short period of time. Moreover, the two Fire Demon Kings' cultivation base had fallen to the initial stage martial saint. Even if they used the yin and yang fusion demon skill, they wouldn't be stronger than him. The three-legged balance would continue for a long time. Ji-dong said to the Fire Demon King, "I have something for you guys to do. No matter what, you guys must do it well." "No problem. Leave it to us." The two Fire Demon Kings looked at each other and said in unison. Ji-dong said, "Ever since the core world was unified by the flaming bar, the overall peace has been restored. However, due to the disparity in strength between the races, it has almost become a habit for the stronger races to bully the weaker races. I've been in the core world for a few months and I've seen everything clearly. Therefore, I want you to send out the Fire Demon tribe to form a monitoring team to wander around the various layers of the core world. Once they encounter any bullying or belittling, show no mercy." "Do you understand what I mean?" A sharp light flashed across the eyes of the two Fire Demon Kings, and they nodded heavily. Ji-dong said faintly, "I only hope that there won't be a situation where the elders of the various races aren't present during the Holy Church's celebration. Even the weakest Fire Demon tribe has the right to participate in the celebration. Although they don't have the strength to come to the 15th layer, you guys can also send people to protect them. If you want the Holy Church to obtain the support of all the races, then you have to treat everyone equally. Don't forget that without the fruits grown by the Fire Demon tribe, most of the races in the core world wouldn't be able to survive. These weak but large races are the foundation of the core world's reproduction." After hearing Ji-dong's words, the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King nodded. This had always been a huge problem that troubled the core world. However, because the Fire Demon tribe was gradually becoming stronger, they had to focus all their energy on fighting against the Fire Demon tribe and couldn't take care of it. At this moment, Ji-dong wanted the Fire Demon tribe to be the monitoring team. It was obviously the most suitable choice. As he inherited the legacy of the two Fire Demon Kings, the Fire Demon Kings could be said to be obedient to Ji-dong. In addition to the relationship between Ji-dong and the Flaming Bar, it could be said that the three major races of the core world had welcomed an unprecedented period of peace. Ji-dong continued, "There's one more thing that requires the three major races and the entire Holy Church to work together. In order to prevent the situation of the strong races suppressing the weak races, we have to completely separate the layers of our core world. Only then, the strong races won't be able to easily invade the weak races' territory. In other words, the guards between the layers must be greatly strengthened in order to achieve this goal." The Fire Demon King patted his chest confidently. "That's not a problem. I'll send 2 clansmen to hold the fort. Let's see who dares to disobey the Holy Church's orders." Ji-dong sighed. "What I've said are all methods. If we want the core world to be completely peaceful, we still need everyone to work together. Not only the 3 major races but also every race in the core world. I'll have to rely on you guys. I'm a human after all, so I can't stay in the core world for long." The Fire Demon King chuckled. "Leader, it's fine even if you stay for a long time. Isn't this place more suitable for you to cultivate?" Ji-dong smiled bitterly. "There are too many things in the human world that are holding me back. If there's really a day where I can calm down, it'll be time for me to look for the Flaming Bar." After hearing his words, the gazes of the few Supreme Elders became somewhat strange, especially the Fire Lotus Monarch. When she saw the trace of loneliness and sorrow that flashed in the depths of Ji-dong's eyes, her heart unconsciously throbbed in pain. Ji-dong said, "Fire Lotus King, I'll have to trouble you. I have a great use for the jade of the earth. Prepare more for me and I'll take it away. At the same time, I have a question to ask you guys. The core world is not allowed to go to the surface world. Does that mean all races are not allowed? Is there any possibility of changing this restriction? The Fire Lotus King thought that he was afraid that the core world's creatures would cause trouble in the human world, and said, I've already asked Hong Yen to prepare a batch of jade of the earth before the qualifiers started. I'm afraid that we can't make more in a short period of time. As for the sealing of the core world, it has been since the birth of the core world. Don't worry, leader, every exit of the core world is guarded by experts. Furthermore, when it leads to the surface world, there are also 100 meters of magma. This ensures that at least the first to fifth layer of the core world are unable to leave the core world. And from the fifth layer onwards, one can be considered to have entered the edge of the core world. That is strictly forbidden, because in the bloodline of the core world below the fifth layer, there is a special substance. Once we leave the core world, we will immediately die. Therefore, the core world is equivalent to an independent existence. It will definitely not affect the surface world, unless we find a way to remove the restriction in our bodies. Her Majesty the Flaming Bar Empress has tried before, but she was also unable to do so. Hearing the Fire Lotus King's words, Ji Dong couldn't help but feel excited and said, That means, as long as we can leave the magma layer, then the core world's creatures in the outer 5 layers can go to the surface world? The Fire Lotus King was stunned for a moment and said, In theory, that's the case. However, even if the core world's creatures in the first 5 layers go to the surface world, it's useless. Their strength is too weak. Other than the kings of the various races, their cultivations aren't high. Furthermore, the core world's creatures in the first 5 layers mainly serve the experts in the deeper layers. They can't leave the magma layer, so they have never gone outside. Ji Dong pondered for a moment and finally said what he was thinking in his heart. If I want to bring the second layer's fire raven race to the human world for a period of time, not too long, is that possible? The Fire Lotus King, Fire Spirit King, and Fire Devil King looked at each other. They clearly didn't understand what Ji Dong meant by this. The Fire Spirit King said doubtfully, Leader, of course it's possible. However, although the Fire Raven race has a large number, they are relatively weak. Not to mention anything else, as long as the dragon race from the surface world takes action, I'm afraid they'll be exterminated in a very short period of time. The Fire Raven race still has a certain use in our core world. They bear the task of transporting the fire essence fruit. If the entire race is exterminated, it'll have a huge impact on the core world. However, if leader really wants to use them, it's not impossible to transfer them out. Ji Dong smiled indifferently and said, What I want to tell all of you is that no race can be underestimated. Even the fire crows that live in the outermost layer of the core world. The fire crows are indeed very weak, but they possess a quality that most races don't have, and that is unity. They have an unyielding backbone and a spirit that is unafraid of death. They are absolutely united, and they wouldn't hesitate even if they had to pay with their lives. Do you still remember the Fire Owl Lord who came to deliver the news? It's right, the Fire Owl race was exterminated when they were looking for the Fire Raven race for revenge. I did take action at that time, but I mainly killed the Fire Owl King. The Fire Owl King brought over 1,000 elites of the Fire Owl race. How did they die? It wasn't just because we Heavenly Stem's holy disciples took action. At the same time, most of them died at the hands of the Fire Raven race. I taught the Fire Raven race a group battle technique. In order to protect the Overlord and Commander rank Fire Raven race, the ordinary Fire Raven race used their own bodies and lives to stop the advance of the Fire Raven race. That battle was a great victory for the Fire Raven race. I believe that most of the Fire Raven race have learned the group battle technique I taught them. I dare say that although they are individually weak, they number in the millions and are united. Apart from the 3 great races, any other race that wants to deal with them will have to pay an unimaginably great price. Don't forget that I have another identity, the Fire Raven King. If someone else had said this, the 4 Supreme Elders would definitely not believe it. However, it felt different when it came from Ji Dong. The reason was very simple. Ji Dong had already created too many miracles with his demonic energy, which was completely out of the ordinary in the 15th layer of the Earth's core. For a moment, the four Supreme Elders couldn't help but look at each other, speechless. They couldn't imagine that the Fire Raven clan would be revered to such an extent by Ji Dong. Chapter 562. Ji Dong took a deep breath and said, "I won't mobilize the Fire Raven clan for the time being. In about 2 years, the 5 elements mainland will encounter a great calamity. At that time, I'm afraid I'll have to ask the Fire Raven clan for assistance. I hope the elders won't object." The Fire Lotus King, Fire Spirit King, and Fire Demon King nodded their heads at almost the same time. They had never thought much of the living beings in the outer 5 levels. Why would they offend the new sect leader who would definitely become a god in front of them? Furthermore, even though Ji Dong had described the Fire Crow clan so perfectly, in reality, with their knowledge, they did not care about this. They did not think that the Fire Crow clan would be able to do anything. Even if the Fire Crow clan were to disappear from the core world, there wouldn't be much of a problem. To Ji Dong, solving this problem was extremely significant. It was even more significant than succeeding the position of the Pope of the Flaming Bar. There were still 2 years for the Fire Raven clan to train. As long as they could master the formation, he only needed to bring 1,000,000 Fire Raven clan to the outside world to become the overlord of the sky. The powerhouses of the 5 elements mainland wouldn't be able to take a single step forward. Ji Dong said, "There's nothing else. I just hope that everyone can work together for the peace of the core world." The Flaming Bar's original intention was not to command the entire core world. Every race is the master of the core world. It's best for everyone to unite and manage the core world. Please wait for me for a while. I'll head to the 18th layer once my mana recovers. Red, endless flames, unparalleled heat and pressure. Steel instantly melted into water. No matter how tough the metal was, it couldn't exist here. This was the 18th layer of the core world. Ji Dong stood silently on the huge geocentric crystal rock platform. He had been here for a full 7 days. From the 15th layer to the 18th layer, luck was in the air and not on the ground. From the 15th layer onwards, it was a world with reversed gravity. One could only enter by flying upwards. Under the guidance of the 3 patriarchs, Ji Dong arrived here 7 days ago. Just like what the Fire Lotus King had said, the 18th layer of the core world belonged to powerhouses at the peak of the Saint tier. This was the true core of the planet. The unparalleled heat almost engulfed Ji Dong when he arrived. Fortunately, the 9 natal lotus seeds of the Flaming Bar had saved him. When Ji Dong saw the familiar crystal platform, he stood there quietly. Only the Flaming Bar existed in his mind. For 7 days and 7 nights, he and the Flaming Bar kept replaying in his mind. The Fire Lotus King was right. If the Flaming Bar hadn't suppressed the power of the 18th layer of the core world, he wouldn't have been able to survive here. When he first came here, he almost died even though the Flaming Bar tried its best to suppress the terrifying heat. At that time, the Flaming Bar had only just met him. The Flaming Bar, it's been more than 2 years. Do you know how I've survived these 2 years after you left? I'd rather have been the one who died and you survived with my body. That way at least we could still be together. The Flaming Bar, I miss you so much. I really miss you so much. Nobody would disturb him here. He was the only one standing quietly on the crystal platform. When he arrived at the 18th layer of the core world once again, this was the place that he had longed to come to the most. However, Ji Dong's mood was completely different from before. Looking at the illusory red color around him, he seemed to see the Flaming Bar smiling at him. The environment here was so bad, but to Ji Dong, it made him feel that this was the closest place to the Flaming Bar. The Flaming Bar, wait until I've gathered all 10 bottles of wine and settled the holy war between the 2 continents. I'll come and find you then. I'll definitely help you fulfill your wish, even though I know that you're afraid that I'll follow you. Even so, I'll still fulfill it. However, do you really think that time can dilute my feelings for you? When you left this world, you took my heart with you. No matter where you are, I'll follow you. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as you've agreed." At this point, an expression that was hard to tell whether he was crying or laughing appeared on his face. He slowly sat down on the crystal platform and said, "If I help the Radiant Five Elements mainland win the Holy War, I'll repay all the favors I've owed since I came to this world. From now on, everything I have belongs to you." At this point, for some reason, a figure suddenly appeared in his mind, causing his words to stop abruptly. That figure was the Tukey Saintess, Chen Sichuan, who had an equally perfect appearance. Ji Dong shuddered. Yes, he could repay the favors of others, but what about Chen Sichuan? Could everything she had done for him be repaid just by winning the Holy War? The flaming bar, I was wrong. I'm afraid I've really let Sichuan enter my heart. She's as perfect as you, even though she's different from you, but I don't know why. Whenever she's by my side, I feel an inexplicable sense of closeness, so I can't make up my mind to chase her away. Perhaps I'm really moved by her, but I can only treat her as a friend and will never take a step further. Even though I know that if your spirit is in heaven, you'll definitely wish for me to be happy, but no one can replace your position in my heart. Without you, I'd rather suffer for the rest of my life. Alright, that's all for today. I'm going to start cultivating and strive to become stronger so that I can solve the problem of the Holy War. It would be great if you were still by my side. We could cultivate together, and when we're strong enough to challenge the divine realm, we'll overturn it. Who asked that despicable place to tear us apart? A hint of killing intent floated out from between Ji Dong's brows. He sat cross-legged and started his routine cultivation. Actually, he would rather stay here and chat with the flaming bar. However, even with the protection of the 9 red lotus seeds, if he didn't cultivate regularly, he wouldn't be able to survive here. In order to stay here for a longer period of time, he had to persevere. A few months later, at the foot of Almond's Mountain, a deep golden light shot into the sky, as though it was going to tear the entire sky apart. The dazzling brilliance surged in the sky, and at this moment, that smear of gold replaced all the other beautiful colors in the sky. On the ground, at the starting point of the golden light, a golden-haired lady sat upright. Wasn't that the golden light emitted from her body? At this moment, on the black Een crown above her head, 5 starlights slowly overlapped and imprinted themselves on the crown peak, forming the last imprint of the 9 crowns. Outside the golden light, Fury and the others clenched their fists as they watched nervously. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement. It's done, it's really done this time. There's finally a powerhouse with the 9 crowns among the heavenly stem holy disciples. The supreme powerhouse, Xian Jin, will follow his holiness. That's right, it was Ah Jin in the golden light. After the heavenly stem holy disciples left the core world, it took them a full 10 days to adapt to the outside world. After leaving the fiery core world, it was the first time they felt that the air on the surface was so wonderful. The various active magical elements in the air were so intimate, and they didn't need any urging at all. They started cultivating with the 5 elements cycle formation that Ji Dong had created. Although Ji Dong wasn't around, the 2 elemental bodies he had summoned completely replaced him, accompanying everyone in their cultivation. The training in the core world didn't just increase everyone's combat experience. At the same time, the harsh environment also made their body's ability to resist pressure stronger. Everyone felt as though they had been reborn, especially Ah Jin, who had fought with saint powerhouses. This feeling was especially strong. Coupled with her own special senses, she finally successfully broke through to the 9 crowns realm after a few months, becoming the first supreme powerhouse among the heavenly stem holy disciples of this generation. 9 crowns and 8 crowns were 2 completely different concepts. In the entire 5 elements continent, there were at least hundreds of 8 crowns demon masters, but only 10 Nine Crowns Demon Masters were known to the public. Most 8 Crowns Demon Masters would never be able to touch the threshold of 9 crowns in their entire lives. Not only did it require their own hard work, but it also required opportunity and talent. Without a doubt, the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples all had the talent to become 9 Crown Sovereigns, but for someone like Audine to break through to 9 Crown at such a young age, it was extremely rare in the history of the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples. Of course, her breakthrough was only the beginning. No one knew her true age. Even Audine herself did not know, and other than her, the others were also charging towards the 9 Crown. Even Du Xner and Du Ming were about to reach the 8 Crown, and Lan Bauer had even successfully entered the 8 Crown level. They were getting closer and closer to Ji Dong's goal. The shocking golden light converged in the air, turning into a long rainbow, slowly landing on the 1 Crown on Audine's head and disappearing. At this moment, Audine's entire body seemed to be emitting a faint layer of treasure light, and she had a special temperament. If she was like the other demon masters in the past, then she was now a part of the metal element. She didn't need to do anything at all, and the metal element in the air would naturally gather around her, waiting for orders. This was the difference between 8 crowns and 9 crowns. Ugh! Audine let out a long breath and slowly opened her beautiful eyes. 2 cold bolts of lightning flashed through them, causing people's hearts to tremble. A rare smile appeared on her cold, delicate face. The Earth Dragon ancestor had once told her that after inheriting the ancestor dragon's bloodline, she would definitely be able to cultivate to the saint level. All she needed was time. Breaking through to the 9 Crowns realm could be said to be the most crucial step. Although the cultivation of the 9 Crowns realm would be slower than the 8 Crowns realm, it would be a smooth journey. There would be no bottlenecks before rank 99. Audine, congratulations, Fury said with a smile. The other Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples also went up to congratulate Audine. Audine smiled and said, "Thank you, everyone. It won't be long before you can also break through to 9 crowns." Fury chuckled and said, "I hope so." After being suppressed in the core world for so long, his mana immediately improved after returning to the surface world. He had already reached rank 88 and was getting closer and closer to rank 90. After Chen Sichuan congratulated Audine, she turned to look in the direction of the Almonds Mountain peak and murmured, "Looking at the time, Ji Dong should have come out by now. Why isn't he here yet?" Audine said, "Perhaps he directly went to the Holy Evil Island." Chen Sichuan's delicate body trembled slightly, and a hint of sadness appeared in her eyes. She understood that Audine was very likely right. Ji Dong was already the leader of the Flaming Bar Holy Church. He could have left through an exit close to the Holy Evil Island and directly gone to the Holy Evil Island. He went to the 18th floor of the core world, so there was no doubt that his yearning for the Flaming Bar would have deepened. But how could she stop him at that time? Smiling bitterly, Chen Sichuan slowly lowered her head. The contradiction in her heart was no longer a contradiction. Even she herself did not know how she should face Ji Dong. Originally, she thought that she had seen an opportunity because Ji Dong did not reject her as much. But as time passed, she found that although Ji Dong no longer rejected her, his love and yearning for the Flaming Bar seemed to have deepened, so she had no chance to truly enter his heart. Ji Dong, oh Ji Dong, how fortunate it is for the Flaming Bar to receive such love from you. But how sad are we now? We are so close, but we can't recognize each other. This is really so close, yet so far away. Audine was right. Ji Dong did go directly to the Holy Evil Island. After confessing and confessing to the Flaming Bar every day in the Earth's core, how could he deliberately return to the others and offer sacrifices to the Flaming Bar with Chen Sichuan? He would never forget the memorial day of the Flaming Bar. At this time, he had already arrived at the Holy Evil Island. On the 3rd memorial day of the Flaming Bar, after offering sacrifices to the Flaming Bar, he bathed in the heavenly red lotus fire and cried bitterly. Finally, he went to the 18th layer of the Earth's core world and made peace there continue. Now, Jidong's last wish was to end the holy war and find the other 3 bottles of top-quality wine for the flaming bar. After bathing in the heavenly red lotus fire for 3 whole days, Jidong walked out and got drunk. He fell on the holy evil island and slept for 3 whole days before he woke up. When he woke up, he did not look at the heavenly red lotus fire again, but activated his own transmitting formation. Flaming bar, I have to go. This is your 3rd Memorial Day. I can't waste time, because the sooner I fulfill your wish and my own responsibility, the sooner I can find you. My flaming bar, wait for me. Luo Qiu tidied up. Chapter 563. The unrestricted teleportation formation was too useful. Even though Jidong was thousands of miles away from Mount Almonds, he appeared in front of the heavenly stem saints in just 10 breaths. With a flash of light, Jidong appeared out of thin air and interrupted the 5 elements cycle formation that his companions were cultivating. Leader, you've finally come out. Miao Miao couldn't help but tease Jidong when she saw him. Jidong's emotions had yet to fully recover from the raging flames of the sacrificial ceremony. He did not answer her question and only nodded at the crowd. Chen Xishuan's heart sank. Looking at him now, she knew that Ajin's words were true. Jidong had really gone to the flaming bar first. He should have stayed on the holy evil island for 6 days. Thinking of this, Chen Xishuan couldn't help but feel an intense pain in her heart. 6 days. He had been there for 6 days. How much pain did he have to endure? She couldn't control herself. She really wanted to rush over and tell Jidong that she was the flaming bar. But she held back in the end. If she said it, then both of them would be destroyed. Even if she didn't say it, at least they could still be together. Even if Jidong didn't know who she was, they would still be together. Ajin, you've advanced to the 9 crowns? Jidong's soul power was extremely powerful. Once he appeared, his soul force field naturally covered a large area around him. The mana fluctuations around Ajin that were different from everyone else's immediately attracted his attention. Ajin and Hyoheim nodded. Yes. A smile finally appeared on Jidong's face as he said, "Congratulations." Ajin shook his head. "There's nothing to congratulate. We still have a long way to go. When can we all break through to the 9 crowns? That would be really worth celebrating. Jidong, what should we do next?" Jidong said, "Let's go. We've done what the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce asked us to do. It's time to get our reward. They still owe us 2 divine artifacts and unconditional support." Yao Qianshu chuckled and said, "That's right, it's time for us to go there. That foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce has nothing to say about making us work so hard. Moreover, we're no longer the heavenly stems and saints we used to be. If that chairman or whatever dares to blame us, we'll make sure he's in trouble." Fury smiled. "If we go, it'll be the chairman's end. Don't forget, he lost a divine artifact." As he spoke, he pointed at Ajin. Ajin had taken away the golden ring of extermination that the skull-faced Wang Xiaolei had. This time, they had successfully completed all the tasks. If they couldn't get the divine artifact back, how would they explain it to the chairman? Jidong said, "Let's do that fatty Zhou Xiaoxiao a favor. Once we get rid of the chairman, his life will be much better. Let's go." In fact, he felt a little guilty towards Zhou Xiaoxiao. After all, the main reason why Zhou Xiaoxiao chose to support the Heavenly Stem Saints was so that Jidong could inherit his position as chairman in the future. However, this was impossible. Jidong had promised to help him as long as he was alive, but Jidong didn't want to live too long. Therefore, he would definitely do anything to help Zhou Xiaoxiao. It could be considered compensation. However, he was determined to get the other 2 divine artifacts. After all, 2 more divine artifacts could close the gap between them and the Heavenly Stem Saint. Fury said, "Jidong, don't you need to rest for a while?" Jidong shook his head and said, "I went to the flaming bar previously and had a good rest. We can't waste any more time. After we get the support of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce, we still have a year to strengthen ourselves. We can't afford to waste time." As he spoke, 2 rays of silver light shot out from his eyes and landed on the 2 tall elemental Zyos. He gave them an order, and the 2 amorphous bodies immediately rose up and climbed towards the top of Almond's mountain. The 2 amorphous bodies had been summoned for a long time, and they had accumulated a large amount of energy. Although they had consumed a lot of energy during the qualifier, they still had a considerable amount of energy left. Ji Dong didn't want to waste it, so he simply let them return to the core world to absorb the fire element. He would bring them back the next time he came. There was no place more suitable for the 2 amorphous bodies to live than the core world. They didn't need to waste any of Ji Dong's mana here. Loud and clear dragon roars sounded one after another. Ji Dong's Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, Fury's Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon, and the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples Dragon mounts appeared one after another. It had been almost a year since they last saw their magical beast companions, so the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples couldn't help but go up to their mounts to have a good time with them. Only Chen Sichuan and Ajin didn't have mounts. The others all had their own magical beasts. The dragons and the silver-winged Hai Dongqing soared into the sky and flew towards the West Jin Empire. 3 days later, they arrived at Jin City again. The capital of the West Jin Empire was already in sight. Just when everyone thought that Ji Dong would order the dragons to land outside the city and then enter the city, Ji Dong acted as if nothing had happened. He was still standing on top of Mount Ai with his hands behind his back, as if he didn't notice that they were about to arrive at Jin City. "Ji Dong, should we land outside the city?" Fury asked Ji Dong as he controlled the speed of the Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon. Ji Dong glanced at his senior and shook his head. An invisible majesty exuded from his body. Even Fury felt a little oppressed when he saw it. This was not deliberately done by Ji Dong, but it was unconsciously released. After completely merging with the 2 kings, he could be said to be a real tyrant. "We don't need to land in advance. Qianshu is right. We don't have time to waste on the internal strife of the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce. It's good to make them timid." As he spoke, Ji Dong patted the dragon's horn of Mount Ai. Mount Ai nodded gently. Then, it raised its head together with the Wuliangye and let out a long roar. The deep dragon roar shook the heavens. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon swayed gently in the air and suddenly sped up, heading straight for Jin City. Seeing that the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon had accelerated, the other dragons did not dare to delay. They followed closely behind and accelerated at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they were already in the sky above Jin City. Under Ji Dong's order, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon deliberately lowered its flying altitude. It only flew at a low altitude about 500 meters above Jin City. With its huge body and deep dragon roar, it was impossible not to attract the attention of the people in Jin City. Moreover, it was accompanied by other dragons. 8 out of 10 Heavenly Stem Saints had mounts. In addition, Ajin transformed into a dragon and flew, and Tianji's mount was a 10th grade diamond dragon. A total of 9 dragons and a silver-winged Hai Dongqing were all powerful magical beasts above the 9th grade. Their sudden appearance in the sky above Jin City had even more impact than Ji Dong had expected. As the capital of the West Jin Empire, Jin City was extremely prosperous. It was morning and the streets were bustling with pedestrians. The newly opened shops all exuded a thriving atmosphere like the morning sun. Just when everything was going back to normal, a deep and resounding dragon roar suddenly rang out, attracting the attention of all the pedestrians. Both commoners and nobles couldn't help but stop their steps. They all had the same thought: who was so daring to cause a dragon roar in Golden City? Or could it be that an earth dragon had run into the vicinity? Dragons were not rare in Jin City, the capital of the West Jin Empire. After all, the West Jin Empire also had its own earth dragon core. It was difficult for the commoners to distinguish between the roars of an earth dragon and a real dragon. Only the magicians and nobles who walked on the streets were shocked. They could tell that the deep dragon roar was made by a powerful dragon, and there was more than one dragon. What's going on? No one understood what was happening. This was Jin City, the capital of the West Jin Empire and the core of the Chamber of Commerce. How could there be so many dragons? At this moment, the bustling Jin City seemed to have stopped because of the dragon roar. The people on the streets looked up at the sky, and the people in the shops and houses came out. It was human nature to be curious, not to mention such an incomprehensible situation. At this moment, the civilians near the south gate of Gold City were the first to see the source of the dragon's roar. It was less than 500 meters in the air, and it seemed to cover the sky. 9 giant dragons and a silver-winged Hai Dongqing had already appeared in their line of sight. The shock they felt was too intense. Every giant dragon's body was huge, especially the rank 10 diamond dragon that Yun Tianji was riding on. Its body was already close to 30 meters long. A commoner in Jin City rubbed his eyes and murmured to himself, "Did I see it wrong? Why does the dragon in front have 2 heads? Why does it have 2 colors?" Although the body of the diamond dragon was huge, it was not as eye-catching as the sacred evolution fire dragon. The Maotai and Wuliangye flying in front were black and white, and they had 2 huge dragon heads. Even the magicians had never seen such strange dragons before, let alone the commoners. An invisible pressure seemed to spread from the sky, and the atmosphere of panic instantly spread in Jin City. There are people on the backs of those dragons. They are real dragons. Oh my God, they are dragon rider magicians. In this world, there was no such thing as a dragon knight, only a dragon rider magician. Only a powerful magician could conquer a real dragon. With the appearance of the heavenly stem saints riding on the giant dragons, the entire Jin City was in an uproar. After all, this was the capital of the West Jin Empire. After the officials discovered the existence of the heavenly stem saints, they reacted immediately. Not long after Ji Dong and the others entered Jin City, a rank 9 golden evil dragon with a body length of more than 15 meters flew over. The magician on the back of the golden evil dragon was more than 15 meters long. The magician on the back of the golden evil dragon was Bai Mangchao, the commander of the golden evil army, who led the golden evil army during the first round of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce's assessment. At this moment, white voluminous Grass's face was full of shock. Who would have thought that so many giant dragons would suddenly appear in Gold City? It was too sudden. After all, this was Gold City, not the drill ground. Although he had absolute confidence in the Gold Thug Army, the Gold Thug Army couldn't display its full strength in the city. How could he deal with so many powerful giant dragons on his own? However, he had to come out to buy time. He had sent people to the palace and the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce to ask for help. Only with the combined strength of these 2 places could they deal with nearly 10 dragons at the same time. From afar, Bai Mangchao could only vaguely see the appearance of those dragons. When he saw the huge diamond dragon, he could not help but gasp. That was a rank 10 dragon, a rank 10 diamond dragon. As far as he knew, apart from the Sanha mountain where the dragon tribe lived, only the diamond army had diamond dragons. Could it be that the people from the Central Empire had come? However, when he took a closer look, he realized that it was not the case. There were only 2 diamond dragons, and the rest of the dragons had different attributes. Gosh, what kind of dragon was flying in the front? Why did it have 2 heads? Although Bai Mangchao had fought with Ji Dong before, at that time, he was facing Ji Dong without a mount. Therefore, he had not seen the sacred evolution fire dragon before. Now that he saw it, he could not help but be dumbfounded. He thought to himself, "Is today the day I die for the country?" Facing so many powerhouses, he did not have any wishful thinking at all. He could only pray that the other party did not have any evil intentions and that the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce could send reinforcements in time. Below them was Jean City. If the other party deliberately attacked, Jean City would be plunged into misery and suffering. He did not even dare to think about the consequences. Originally, the Golden Evil Army still had 2 Golden Evil Dragons. However, the 2 Deputy Commander-in-Chief had brought a large number of Golden Evil Army soldiers to the Holy Evil Island. The 2 sides were getting closer and closer. As the distance between them narrowed, White Voluminous Grass was stunned. He immediately saw Ji-dong standing on the head of the sacred evolution fiery dragon Moutai. He was dressed in white, his black hair fluttering in the wind. Although his hair had turned black, he could never forget Ji-dong's appearance. It was this young man with 7 crowns of cultivation that had shocked him. That battle could be said to be the most humiliating battle in the history of the Golden Fiend Army. They had sent out all their elites, but they could not defeat an opponent with only 7 crowns of cultivation. Furthermore, this opponent was so young. Furthermore, he clearly remembered that this young man was the heir chosen by Zhou Xiaoxiao, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, after seeing Ji-dong's appearance clearly, White Voluminous Grass finally heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 564. Is that heavenly scholar Ji-dong? In the distance, the White Voluminous Grass was already shouting. Celestial Scholar was the title of a 7 crowns demon master. He didn't know that in these short 2 years, Ji-dong was no longer a celestial scholar, but an 8 crowns Empyrean. Moreover, he was Empyrean Shuanghua, whose cultivation had already risen from the 18th layer of the core world to the 87th layer. Long time no see. How have you been, Brother White? The sacred evolution fire dragon suddenly sped up. In a flash, it had already rushed out of the dragon formation of the heavenly stem saint. White Grass only saw a blur in front of him. The strange 2-headed, wingless dragon was already 50 meters away from him. At the same time, the Golden Evil Dragon under White Grass immediately sensed the aura of the sacred evolution fire dragon. Its body suddenly trembled. White Grass was shocked to find that his old friend was actually feeling timid. This had never happened before. Ji-dong was already a monster in White Grass's heart. He didn't expect that even the dragon Ji-dong was riding on would be so strong. For a moment, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. Ever since I fought with you, I haven't had a good time. Recently, things have been getting better. Now that you guys are here, I'm afraid it's going to be bad again. Heavenly Scholar Ji-dong, what is the meaning of this? Ji-dong smiled indifferently and said, Nothing much. We just came to the Chamber of Commerce and were too lazy to walk, so we flew in. Brother White, don't worry, we don't have any ill intentions. Hearing Ji-dong's words, White Grass couldn't help but be angry. He said slightly angrily, Ji-dong, this is the airspace of our Gold City, the capital of the West Jin Empire. Do you have any respect for the West Jin Empire by flying in like this? Although he was in an absolute disadvantage, as the commander of the Golden Evil Army and a high-ranking military official of the West Jin Empire, how could he be timid at this moment? He immediately questioned Hyoheim. At this moment, the mounts of the heavenly stem saints had already flown close. White Grass also saw clearly that these people were the ones who came to the Chamber of Commerce with Ji-dong to watch the battle. How come they all had dragons as mounts in 2 years? Moreover, these dragons seemed to be at least Class 9 magical beasts. A group of 7 crown evil masters was not scary, but a group of Class 9 magical dragons could definitely be a destructive threat. It would be strange if he didn't look good. Brother White, do you know who we are? Ji-dong didn't have any emotional changes because of the White Voluminous Grass's questioning, and he just faintly asked back. White Grass was stunned for a moment and said, What do you mean? Ji-dong said, In the battle that day, I defeated the Golden Evil Army with my ultimate dual fire. Brother White, don't you understand? I'm not a 9-crown supreme expert. This. How could White Grass not remember that battle? After that battle, he had reflected on himself for a month and carefully thought about the process of that battle. He also deeply studied Ji Dong's situation. Now that Ji Dong mentioned it, he couldn't help but blurt out, "Heavenly Stem Saints? You are a Heavenly Stem Saint? Are all of you?" Ji Dong nodded and said, "With the identity of a Heavenly Stem Saint, can we fly into Gold City?" This. White Grass was speechless. Although the Heavenly Stem Saints would only appear once every few hundred years, every time they appeared, it was when the mainland was facing a life-and-death situation. Therefore, regardless of the era or the country, the Heavenly Stem Saints had an absolutely transcendent status. Even the monarchs would be polite to them. Although Ji Dong seemed a little arrogant to be leading a group of Heavenly Stem Saints into Gold City, there was nothing wrong with their identity. Just as the white mangrass was unable to return, not too far away, flying magical beasts were quickly approaching. These flying magical beasts were coming from two different directions. One direction was where the royal palace was located. The ones riding these flying magical beasts were naturally the royal magicians. Any royal magician with a class 6 or higher flying magical beast had already arrived. As for the other direction, it was naturally coming from the foolishly rich merchant group. With so many dragons appearing, how could the foolishly rich merchant group not know about it? Zhou Xiaoxiao and Lone Bamboo were flying in the front. Behind them were at least 50 demon masters with flying demon beasts. There were many who were riding dragon mounts. After the two sides met in the sky, they flew over. There were nearly 100 of them. It could be said that they were the strongest aerial force in all of Gold City, and even in the entire West Jin Kingdom. Now that the reinforcements had arrived, White Voluminous Grass breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled bitterly at Ji Dong and said, "I can't make the decision on this matter, and I don't quite understand why you insist on doing this. President Zhou is here. You and he are old acquaintances, so naturally, he will handle this matter." As he spoke, he had already stepped aside on his gold demon dragon. It was early in the morning, and he was sleeping soundly with the twins in his arms when he was woken up by a dragon's roar. At first, he thought it was the Gold Devil Army and the palace training, so he didn't pay much attention to it. However, soon, someone came to inform him that there was an enemy invasion. He quickly got up, gathered his people, and flew out. From afar, the fat man saw Ji Dong's sacred evolution fire dragon. He immediately let out a sigh of relief. He laughed and said, "I was wondering who it was. It turns out that Ji Dong is back. It has been 2 years, and he has finally shown himself. Hey, is this still the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciple? D*MN, all of them look brand new. They all have mounts, and they are all dragons. It seems that they have passed the second test. Otherwise, how could they have so many dragon mounts?" Thinking about this, the fat man was suddenly very excited. He didn't care about the people behind him. He quickly sped up. After a few sprints, he passed by White Grass and arrived in front of Ji Dong. "Brat, you're finally back. Why did you make such a big fuss?" Zhou Xiaoxiao only stopped when he was 3 meters away from Ji Dong. Although that was what he said, it was obvious how happy he was from the smile on his face. Ji Dong smiled and said, "Isn't it because of you? If I didn't make a big fuss, the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce would think that we're easy to bully. We're here to collect our debt." The fat man chuckled and said, "Good, very good. This is good too. I think your current strength is enough to conquer the entire parliament. It seems that you've completed the second task. When we get there later, I will immediately call for an emergency meeting as the president to waive the third test. With these dragons, let's see what that old fart Wang Daojun can say." Fury rode on the purple thunder heavenly dragon and flew beside Ji Dong. He laughed and said, "We've also completed the third test. Of course, he can't say anything." Zhou Xiaoxiao was stunned and said, "Fury, what did you say?" The third test is also impossible. You went to the core realm? Fury said unhappily, don't you know who we are? We are the heavenly stem saints, born to create miracles. Don't talk to me about the core realm. It's not a place for humans to stay. We almost died there. However, the test is finally completed. Ji Dong has already reached the 18th level and obtained the geocentric crystal rock. Zhou Xiaoxiao stared at Hyoheim in shock and said, Brat, I treat you well, right? You can't deceive my young heart like this. Is the core realm a place for humans to enter? I tried it before. I went in 2 or 3 levels and quickly ran back. I almost died there. Ji Dong glanced at his plump body with some disdain and said, You think you're so young? There's something I've forgotten to tell you. The previous ruler of the core realm, the Flaming Bar Queen, is my lover. When I was only 11 years old, I went to the 18th level of the core realm. Wait, let me calm down. Fatty Hyoheim waved his hands and took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. He raised his head and looked at Ji Dong seriously. I believe you. Ji Dong smiled and said, We've retrieved the Dragon King's scale and the geocentric crystal rock. The facts are right in front of you. You have to believe it. Zhou Xiaoxiao looked at Ji Dong sternly and said in a low voice, I have to say, Ji Dong, you're not a human, you're a monster. He couldn't help but laugh after saying this. Ji Dong shook his head helplessly, only to discover that his companions, with the exception of Chen Sichuan, were all nodding in agreement. Clearly, they agreed with Fatty's words. In a sense, Ji Dong was a monster. How many of the things he did could be done by a normal person? Ji Dong said, Our return is also the end of Wang Daojun. Zhou Xiaoxiao's smile disappeared and he nodded silently. He sighed and said, No matter what, he's still the descendant of the founder of the Chamber of Commerce. Sigh, Ji Dong glanced at him and coldly said, Make a decision when it's time to make a decision. Otherwise, you'll end up in chaos. This is your internal matter, you can decide it yourselves. What? Do you want us to float around here? Zhou Xiaoxiao's eyes flashed with fierceness after listening to Ji Dong's words. He nodded and said, Let's go back to the Chamber of Commerce. With Fatty's status, he didn't need to explain anything to anyone. He only gave the white grass a meaningful glance and then led the heavenly stem saints back to Silly Banching. After returning to the Silly Rich Chamber of Commerce, Zhou Xiaoxiao used his status as the president to issue an urgent summons to all the elders in Silly Banching. He didn't want to give Wang Daojun any time to act. Everything had been decided the moment Ji Dong's group returned. The entire hall was silent when Ji Dong took out the Dragon King's scale and the geocentric crystal rock and placed them in front of the Silly Rich Chamber of Commerce's elders. The elders on Zhou Xiaoxiao's side were very excited at this time. Although the majority of the elders on Wang Daojun's side were looking at the chairman, the atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Wang Daojun took a deep breath and looked at the imposing Ji Dong, then at Zhou Xiaoxiao. His expression couldn't be described as ugly. His grandson was nowhere to be found in 2 years. He had used all his power to search for him, but he couldn't find a single trace. If it wasn't for the fact that the 2 tests were too difficult, he would have collapsed a long time ago. Even so, he couldn't sleep at night. He already had an ominous feeling when he learned that Ji Dong's group had returned. At this moment, his emotions were fluctuating violently. Who can prove that the Dragon King's scale is real? Who can prove that the geocentric crystal rock is real? No one has ever seen these 2 things before. How can you say that you've passed the test just because you took them back? Wang Daojun's eyes suddenly became ferocious as he stared at Ji Dong fiercely. Wang Daojun's voice, which had clearly become much sharper, echoed in the hall. The other elders didn't say a word. Everyone could see that the chairman had completely put on a brave front. Zhou Xiaoxiao sneered and said, You said that you don't know anyone? Then why did you still propose such a test? Wang Daojun was at a loss for words. His chest heaved violently as he panted. he said. "No matter what, since the test has been proposed, it can't be changed. Unless he can prove that these things are real, we can't admit that he has passed the test." All of this came too suddenly for him. He didn't have the chance to prepare at all, nor did he have the chance to communicate with the elders on his side. Wang Daojun could only hope to buy himself some more time. That way, he would at least have a chance. Ji Dong smiled faintly and said, "You want to prove it? Alright, where do you want to go first? Is it the Dragon Valley or the Core World?" As soon as this was said, the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce's meeting hall was in an uproar. The elders were originally full of disappointment for Wang Daojun, but after hearing Ji Dong's words, they became doubtful again. Were these two places that they could go just because they wanted to? Ji Dong said indifferently, "Why don't we go to the Core World first? Everyone, you are all elders of the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce and can be said to be very knowledgeable. I believe you must have heard of the existence of the 5 elements formation. Among the 5 elements formation, there is a formation called the teleportation formation. Now that we have the heavenly stem saints, we have set up teleportation formations in the Dragon Valley and the Core World without any restrictions. Whoever wants to go to these 2 places now, I can grant your wish right now. Set up the formation." The heavenly stem holy disciples could no longer hold themselves back. In a flash, they had already surrounded Ji Dong. Wang Daojun's face was drained of all color the moment the 5-element yin-yang world appeared. Going to the Core World was an experience that the elders of the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce didn't even think about. Suddenly, many people responded. Even Zhou Xiaoxiao and Lone Bamboo, the 2 most powerful beings, couldn't resist. In the end, they decided that Lone Bamboo would stay and look after Wang Daojun. In total, 10 representatives were invited to the yin-yang realm by Ji Dong. Of these 10 representatives, 8 were on Wang Daojun's side. Chapter 565. Amidst the dazzling light, the teleportation circle was imprinted in the conference hall. In the next moment, the heavenly stem holy disciples had already disappeared with the representative. "No, this is impossible, this can't be real," Wang Daojun roared hysterically. His mind was on the verge of collapse, but how could he not understand that since Ji Dong dared to do this, he must be confident. After a quarter of an hour, the dazzling light reappeared, and the people who had disappeared had returned. Zhou Xiaoxiao's loud and clear voice was the first to ring out, "I've learned something, I've really learned something. No wonder Fury said that it's not a place for people to stay. It's so awesome, so satisfying, so satisfying." Ji Dong directly brought them to the 15th floor of the Core World. There was no need for him to say anything. The environment of the 15th floor was enough to prove a lot of problems. Zhou Xiaoxiao really went out to feel the terrifying heat of the 15th floor. Most of the stupid rich elders of the Chamber of Commerce were under the protection of the heavenly stem holy disciples. Although this strange trip only lasted for a short time, it was an eye-opener for them. This was under the condition that Ji Dong didn't alarm the 3 major clans of the Core World. Otherwise, who knew how shocked they would be if a large number of sect masters shouted at them. "Wang Daojun, we've already proved that Ji Dong's geocentric rock was obtained from the Core World. What else do you have to say?" Zhou Xiaoxiao said loudly. Wang Daojun's body swayed and he almost fell. He had to support himself with both hands on the table in front of him. He shouted in a stern voice, "This is all a smokescreen. It's all a smokescreen. It's all fake." This time, even the elders on his side looked at him with disdain, especially the elders who had just been to the Core World. They shook their heads and sighed. The feeling of being betrayed by one's own people was not a good one. Wang Daojun knew that he was finished. Zhou Xiaoxiao sneered, "Don't think that I don't know why you're in such a difficult situation. Let me ask you, where is the divine artifact of the Chamber of Commerce now?" Hearing this, Wang Daojun finally couldn't control his body anymore and sat down on the chair with a plop. Zhou Xiaoxiao said coldly, As the chairman, you took the Chamber of Commerce's divine artifact without permission and lost it. I've known about this for a long time. That's why you're afraid that Ji Dong will want the divine artifact after he becomes the president's successor, so you're making things difficult for him. Ji Dong has already completed 3 such difficult missions. What else do you have to say? Losing the Chamber of Commerce's divine artifact was not a crime that Wang Daojun could bear. All the elders knew that Wang Daojun was finished. At the same time, it also announced that Ji Dong's position as the successor of the Chamber of Commerce's president was completely secured. Even though it could be said that Wang Daojun had deliberately made things difficult for him by completing the 3 tests, it was also these 3 tests that had completely won over all the elders of the Chamber of Commerce. It should be known that it was unlikely for President Zhou Xiaoxiao, who was a level 97 supreme expert, to complete these 3 tests, not to mention Ji Dong, who was only in his 20s. Everything that Ji Dong had done had completely won over the entire Chamber of Commerce. Ji Dong didn't ask about the punishment of Wang Daojun. After completing the tests, he and his companions stayed in the Chamber of Commerce's abode. As for how to deal with Wang Daojun, that was Zhou Xiaoxiao's business. He had no intention of participating in it. For him and the heavenly stem saints, the most important thing was to cultivate. They couldn't slack off at all. The storm that swept through the entire Chamber of Commerce lasted for 3 days before it gradually calmed down. Although Wang Daojun could be considered to have been deserted by everyone because of Ji Dong's incident, he still had the support of a group of diehard supporters. Zhou Xiaoxiao used a thunderous momentum and used a full 3 days to settle this matter. During the day, the heavenly stem saints would all cultivate together. At night, they would all return to their rooms and choose their own cultivation methods according to their own circumstances. When night fell, Ji Dong returned to the abode after dinner and sat cross-legged to cultivate. Recently, he had been summarizing his gains and losses in the core world, especially integrating his various abilities. For him, there were many auxiliary skills that could be used effectively. How to use these skills effectively was even more important than increasing his mana. The fact that he could heavily injure the Fire Demon King, who was a high-level sage, showed that his overall strength was great. Although the Fire Demon King had underestimated him, it could be seen that Ji Dong's overall strength was at least at the sage level. Ji Dong, who was sitting quietly, suddenly opened his eyes and said indifferently, "Since you're already here, why don't you come in? Brat, you're getting more and more powerful. After not seeing you for 2 years, I almost don't recognize you anymore." Zhou Xiaoxiao pushed open the door and entered. He was just wondering if Ji Dong was cultivating and whether he should disturb him when he heard Ji Dong's voice. Sitting on the bed, Ji Dong slowly opened his eyes. However, he did not get off the bed. Instead, he smiled and asked, "Is everything settled?" Zhou Xiaoxiao sighed and said, "It's been at least 20 years. I've been thinking about how to defeat that old thing Wang Daojun, but after I really defeated him, I felt a sense of loss. In the end, I didn't execute him and only locked him up. No matter what, his bloodline cannot be severed in my hands." Ji Dong smiled indifferently and said, "I've already guessed this result. Since everything has been settled, it's time to fulfill the promise of your foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce." Zhou Xiaoxiao laughed and said, "Of course I'll keep my word. The golden hoop is already in your hands. Tomorrow morning, I'll take you to the Chamber of Commerce's treasury. If you have any requests, you can ask them together. As long as the Chamber of Commerce can do it, we'll do our best to support you. The time of the Holy War is getting closer and closer. I'm very happy to see your great growth, but I'm also more and more worried about the Holy War." Ji Dong said, "Fatty, what's the current situation on the continent? Are all the countries ready?" Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled bitterly and said, "Although 5 years is not a short period of time, it is still impossible for the overall strength of our Radiance continent to improve greatly. All the countries are doing their best, and no one wants to become slaves of a subjugated country. Fortunately, we have your 5 elements: mutual generation and circulation formation, which gives us some capital. But who can say what will happen in the Holy War? Now, there are more than 2 million troops stationed on the Holy Evil Island and the East Sea coast. All the countries are hoarding all kinds of materials there. The emperors and representatives of the countries have held several summits and unanimously decided to put the Holy War on the Holy Evil Island to keep the enemy out of the continent. Of course, this is the result of our final victory. If we lose the Holy War, I'm afraid the whole continent will fall in a short period of time. What we can do now is to go all out to face the Holy War. But no one can say to what extent we can do. As the preparation for the Holy War deepens, I feel more and more that you heavenly STEM saints are the real heroes. I can't imagine what would happen to the Radiant Continent if the plan of the Dark 5 Elements continent on the Holy Evil Island was completed. Without the help of you and the Flaming Bar Queen, what would the Radiant Continent be like now? I hope the dawn you bring can finally illuminate the Radiant Continent. We will definitely win the final victory. Definitely, Ji Dong said in a deep voice. His voice was full of an unquestionable tone. Although Zhou Xiaoxiao was the president of the world's #1 Chamber of Commerce, at this moment, he felt a majesty from Ji Dong that made him want to surrender. Was this guy really only in his 20s? Fatty nodded and sighed. Actually, the pressure brought by the Dark 5 Elements continent is not all bad for the Radiant Continent. Ji Dong looked at him with a puzzled expression. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "The 5 empires are united as one, which has never been seen before. Paper can't wrap fire. Although all the countries are trying their best to block the news, most people already know the existence of the Dark 5 Elements continent. Do you know what the result of this situation is?" Ji Dong shook his head. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "The result is not panic as imagined, but unity. Originally, the 5 empires did not have many standing armies. Except for the Central Empire, which has 600,000 standing armies, the other 4 empires have 300,000 to 400,000 standing armies. In recent years, all the countries have been expanding their armies, but the supply of young men exceeds the demand. They are extremely enthusiastic. In just 3 months, the expansion of the army has consumed all the equipment in the storage of each country. Now a large number of reserve troops are still training in cloth clothes. Before the expansion of the army, the total military strength of the 5 empires was about 2 million, but now it has reached 4 million, and the number is still increasing. Not to mention, the 5 empires have also mobilized nearly 5 million craftsmen and workers to build a fortress near the East Sea coast of the Holy Evil Island. It is said that 70% of the construction has been completed. Ji Dong nodded and said, "I've seen the fortress, but I didn't pay special attention to it at that time. When he was flying to the Holy Evil Island, he naturally saw the fortress less than 25 miles away from the Red Lotus Heavenly Fire. But at that time, his mind was focused on the Flaming Bar, so he naturally didn't pay much attention to it. Now that Zhou Xiaoxiao mentioned it, he recalled that he seemed to vaguely see a large number of people busy in the air at that time. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "We're talking about 5 million people. All of them are doing the same thing. How can they not do it? Materials from all the countries are constantly being transported to the East Sea coast and the Holy Evil Island. All the countries are ready for a bitter battle. Our foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce donated 1/3 of our wealth to equip the troops and magicians of the West Jin Empire. Almost every magician of the West Jin Empire has at least one magic weapon, and every soldier of the West Jin Empire has at least the simplest leather armor. This was because of Wang Daojun. Now that he has been dealt with, I intend to donate another batch of wealth. In total, I want to donate half of the wealth of the entire Chamber of Commerce. If the country is gone, what's the use of money? Wang Daojun just doesn't understand this." Ji-dong was in awe and said, "Fatty, I fully support you. Originally, I didn't have any confidence in this holy war, but after hearing what you said, I feel a bit more confident. The effort of a country is quite considerable, not to mention that we have the whole continent working together." Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "In fact, when it comes to contribution, no one can compare with you, the chief elder of the Elder Council." Chief elder? When did I become the chief elder? Although Ji-dong was an elder of the Elder Council, he didn't even know that he was the chief elder. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "Of course you weren't, but as more and more people practice the 5 elements cycle formation, your reputation in the world of devils has reached its peak. Making you the chief elder wasn't the decision of the Elder Council, it was the decision of all the Devil Masters. It can be said that more than half of the Devil Masters on the continent can be considered as your disciple. This is also why I said that even if you only completed the second test, or even if you didn't, I was certain that you would become the successor of the Chamber of Commerce. Your status on the continent has even surpassed that of the rulers of the various countries. You are known as a milestone in the development of the Devil Masters. In any case, be careful. If you appear in any gathering of the Devil Masters, even if you don't become a totem, you will definitely be regarded as a faith. Be careful not to be swallowed by the enthusiasm of the Devil Masters." Ji-dong helplessly said, "I didn't think about this. The reason why I decided to impart the 5 elements cycle formation to all the Devil Masters was because of this holy war. At the same time, it was also to shorten the gap between the Devil Masters and the Devil Masters. At the same time, with the existence of the 5 elements cycle formation, the Devil Masters' cultivation speed will increase a lot. Although 5 years isn't a long time, it should be enough for the Devil Masters of the continent to improve." Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "Ji-dong, there are still 2 years left before the Red Lotus heavenly fire disappears. What do you plan to do? I don't believe that you'll just stay quiet. Do you have any new inventions or formations? If you do, then since you are the successor of the Chamber of Commerce, you can impart it to the West Jin Empire. I can assure you that the entire West Jin Empire will not doubt you. Moreover, they will support you with all their strength. Even if you want to be the state teacher, it won't be a problem." Ji-dong snappily said, "Do you think I'm a god? If it was so easy to create a formation suitable for all the Devil Masters, then the Devil Masters of the continent wouldn't be like this." Chapter 566. Zhou Xiaoxiao said with some disappointment, "You've been missing for 2 years, but your cultivation has increased significantly. If I'm not wrong, you must have broken through 8 crowns. You were so fierce when you were 7 crowns. Now that you're 8 crowns, I don't think I'm your opponent. I don't believe that you didn't comprehend anything." Ji-dong laughed. "Even if I did comprehend something, it's only suitable for me or the heavenly stem saints. Fatty, you don't have to try to get information from me, I really didn't." Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "Then what do you plan to do in the next 2 years to prepare for the holy war? Continue to cultivate? Unfortunately, there's only 2 years left. If you had another 8 or 10 years, I'd believe that you could reach the Saint Realm. At that time, we wouldn't have to be afraid of the 5 elements continent." Ji-dong said, "I have a plan that must be implemented. In the next 2 years, the heavenly stem saints may use a period of time to cultivate and reorganize. After that, I will start to implement my plan. I hope that my plan can affect the situation of the holy war." Zhou Xiaoxiao was shocked. Ji-dong said it casually, but the phrase "affect the situation of the holy war" shocked him. The holy war was a war between 2 continents. Although the heavenly stem saints were strong, there were only 10 of them. How could they affect the situation of the war? Ji-dong looked at the fatty and said, "I know you have some doubts. I came here this time to tell you about this matter. However, you must promise me to keep it a secret for now. 3 months before the start of the Holy War, you can announce this to the Demon Master Union's Elder Council. If I haven't returned by that time, You should focus on defense and retreat towards the direction of the 3-Unity mountain range. That's the only place where you might have a chance of survival. Wait. Fatty Hyoheim waved his hand and said, Ji Dong, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Ji Dong said indifferently, if I haven't returned 3 months before the Holy War, then it proves that I will never be able to return. Only the Dragon Clan of the 3 Harmony Mountain Range can help you resist the darkness of the 5 Elements continent. There is a great expert there who can barely contend against the darkness of the heavenly mystery. Zhou Xiaoxiao was shocked. Ji Dong, what is your plan? Why couldn't he come back? With the combined strength of the heavenly stem holy disciples, you should be able to contend against a few supreme beings at the same time, right? Ji Dong said, I want to go to the 5 Elements continent. Although Zhou Xiaoxiao had a high estimation of Ji Dong's plan, when he heard Ji Dong's words, his fat body couldn't help but shake. His small eyes suddenly widened, causing the fat around his eyes to bulge. He said, You say that again. Ji Dong looked at Fatty's shocked expression and couldn't help but find it funny. He said, I want to go to the 5 Elements continent with my companions. As for what we are going to do, I don't think I need to explain. Zhou Xiaoxiao was so shocked that all the fat on his body shook. He said, You mean, you can legally pass through the Red Lotus heavenly fire and enter the 5 Elements continent? Ji Dong nodded. The fatty's breathing clearly became hurried. He paced back and forth in the room and said, I understand what you mean. You want to enter the 5 Elements continent with the heavenly stem saints to wreak havoc. However, there are only 10 of you. You're too weak. Since you have a way to bring all of you into the 5 Elements continent, why don't you bring more of them? Bring a group of powerhouses, and even all of our supreme beings with 9 crowns cultivation. Ji Dong shook his head and said, It's meaningless for me to bring ordinary devil masters, even an 8-crowned devil master. What we are going to face is the dark heavenly stem holy disciples and even the dark heavenly secret peak saint expert. If we bring too many people, it will only increase the number of casualties. As for you supreme experts, you can't go. The 5 Elements continent is so dangerous that I don't even know if I can come back alive. Once we are lost in the 5 Elements continent, at least you supreme experts can hold the fort here. You can lead our army to fight and retreat to the 3 Harmony mountain range. If you are lost there with us, then our army will be defeated in one blow. I'm already gambling, and the stakes are quite high. I can't gamble the life and death of the entire continent. Listening to Ji Dong's words, Zhou Xiaoxiao gradually calmed down. He looked at him and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Ji Dong, if you really die there, who will inherit my position as president? Ji Dong was silent for a moment, then said, Fatty, you should understand that since I have made up my mind, I will not change it. For you, it may be important to inherit the position of president of the Foolish Rich Merchant Guild, but now is a special time. For me, it is more important to help the 5 Elements continent to win the final victory in the Holy War. Didn't you say just now, without a country, how can there be a home? If the 5 Elements continent invades the hinterland, then the humans of the 5 Elements continent can only become slaves, or even worse. I must do this. If I really can't come back, I will do my best to protect Yao Qianshu, so that he can come back alive, or wait there until the Red Lotus heavenly fire dispels to meet with you. Yao Qianshu was known as the medicine cures fatal diseases, and the fated person. In fact, in terms of temperament, he is more suitable to inherit the position of president of the Foolish Rich Merchant Guild. His cultivation has already surpassed the 8-crowned holy disciple, and he is only a few years older than me. Zhou Xiaoxiao's mood was obviously a little unstable. Okay, don't say any more. He growled, interrupting Ji Dong's words, his small eyes fixed on Ji Dong, and said, Why do I feel that you are entrusting your child to me? How do you know that you can't come back when you haven't gone? Damn, brat, no matter what, you must keep your life. You should know how important you are to the continent. Heavenly Stem Holy King, Chief Elder of the Devil Master United Elders Guild, just these two identities are enough to make you a saint in the hearts of all Devil Masters. The Five Elements continent needs you, you must come back alive. Jidong looked at Fatty's excited expression, and couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He understood that the reason why Zhou Xiaoxiao was worried about his safety was not purely because of his identity as the successor of the Merchant Guild, but also because of their friendship despite the age gap. If I can live, why should I die? Even if I die, I must see the destruction of the dark heavenly secrets, and our Five Elements continent obtain the final victory. At that time, it can be said that I have died a worthy death. Ba, don't talk nonsense. Jidong, what are you going to do after you go there? Zhou Xiaoxiao asked in a low voice, and at the same time, released his own magic power, completely isolating the sound in the room from the outside world. Jidong didn't stop him. In fact, with Jidong's soul cultivation, unless it was a high-level saint-level powerhouse who was eavesdropping, how could he not be discovered by him? When Zhou Xiaoxiao asked this in a low voice, his small eyes clearly showed some excitement, flickering with a strong desire to destroy. Jidong said, "What else can we do if we go there? The most important thing in this holy war is the battle between the Devil Masters of both sides. The destructive power of the Devil Masters, especially the high-level Devil Masters, is enough to affect the whole situation of the war. We are not going there to destroy the enemy's people. Our goal is very simple, and that is to reduce the number of Devil Masters on the Five Elements continent. When the Holy War starts, the less Devil Masters they have on the battlefield, our advantage will increase. If possible, my biggest goal is to kill a few dark heavenly stem saints, so that they can't gather more saints. That way, it will be perfect, and we can also go all out to deal with the dark heavenly secrets guy." Zhou Xiaoxiao laughed and said, "This is the legendary beheading operation. From my point of view, although this is very risky, I fully support you. I really want to go with you." Jidong laughed and said, "I didn't expect you to have so much violence in you. But you know you can't go." Zhou Xiaoxiao was disappointed. "Wang Daojun is imprisoned, and the Chamber of Commerce needs me. The West Jin Kingdom needs me too. Lone Bamboo is strong, but he doesn't have enough influence. I can't leave. Jidong, let's not talk about anything else. Tomorrow, when we go to the Chamber of Commerce's treasury, you can take whatever you need. Don't be shy with me. You may be bold, but I believe that with your power, you can turn the Five Elements continent upside down. If the Red Lotus Sky fire disappears and we don't see any demon masters, I wonder what will happen." "Ah." Zhou Xiaoxiao looked disappointed and said, "Yes, how can I leave? Wang Daojun is imprisoned and the Chamber of Commerce needs me. Your beheading operation is bold, but I believe that with your power, you can turn the Five Elements land upside down. If the Red Lotus Sky fire disappears, and we don't see any demon masters there, I can't imagine what will happen." "Ha." Jidong wasn't as optimistic as Zhou Xiaoxiao. He shook his head and said, "Even if we can kill all the demon masters in the Five Elements land, we still haven't won. That is because there is still dark fate. As long as he is there, we will always be in danger. He is at the pinnacle of Saint Class. Only the dragons have Saint Class elites, but how can we guarantee that there are no Saint Class dragons in the Five Elements land?" Zhou Xiaoxiao nodded and said, "I understand what you mean, but where there is a will, there is a way. You can create miracles, so who says you can't kill a Saint Class elite? He is only level 99. Don't always think of him as Saint Class. If you think of the numbers, you won't feel as pressured." Jidong was amused by Zhou Xiaoxiao's words. "Okay, you are optimistic. You are level 97, and the enemy is level 99. How about I leave dark fate to you?" Zhou Xiaoxiao suddenly showed a pitiful expression and said, "I, Fatty, am only 300 pounds. If you are willing to let me be a sacrifice, I will go. Ji-dong laughed and scolded. All right, stop acting pitiful in front of Yuner. Let's go. Tomorrow morning, I will go with everyone to rob your Chamber of Commerce's treasury. Don't worry, we will not be lenient. After Zhou Xiaoxiao left, Ji-dong once again entered into a state of cultivation. He naturally had his reasons for doing so much to Zhou Xiaoxiao today. It was because he couldn't waste any more time. After explaining these things to Zhou Xiaoxiao and understanding the situation of the continent, he could focus all his energy on his beheading operation. In the Dark Five Elements continent, they didn't have any supplies. It could be said that everywhere they went was an enemy. No one could predict what would happen there. It wasn't impossible for them to encounter the Dark Heaven's will as soon as they passed through the Red Lotus heavenly flames. However, he still had to go, Early in the morning, the Heavenly Stem holy disciples had just finished their breakfast when the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce's vice president, Lone Bamboo, arrived. He did not say anything, but Ji-dong told him about his conversation with Zhou Xiaoxiao during breakfast. Of course, he knew why the vice president was here. Yao Qianshu even ate less than usual for breakfast. If one looked closely, one could see that his eyes seemed to be glowing with the light of gold coins. No one could be compared to him in terms of love for money. Although the girls did not love money as much as he did, when they thought of the word treasury, they would undoubtedly think of jewelry. Which girl did not like jewelry? Even Ah Jean was no exception. Don't forget, she was a member of the Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan was born with no immunity to shiny things. The most excited ones were Lang Tianyi and Du Xin. Their excitement naturally came from the destination of this trip, the other two divine artifacts of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce. Those two divine artifacts were of the Gung metal element and the earth element, which were just right for them to use. The only ones who could remain calm were Tianji, Chen Xishuan, and Ji-dong. Seeing that his companions could not wait any longer, Ji-dong smiled and said, "Let's go, Vice President Lone Bamboo." If Ji-dong was just an ordinary heir, Lone Bamboo, as a senior and a supreme elite, naturally had to be careful. However, who was Ji-dong? He was like a totem in the world of demons. Lone Bamboo was very polite and let Ji-dong walk with him. They walked out of the abode and walked into the depths of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce's underground city. As they walked, Lone Bamboo emitted a thick soul wave that enveloped the Heavenly Stem holy disciples. He then said, "The President is already waiting for you at the Treasury. Let me give you a brief introduction of the Treasury so that you can choose what you want later. The Treasury of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce has existed since the founding of the Chamber of Commerce, but it was not here. It was only when the underground city was built that the Treasury was moved here." Chapter 567. The outer treasury is divided into three parts: rare treasures, magical weapons, and crystal cores. The inner treasury is not categorized, but it is filled with treasures. If you want to use the items in the treasury, you need the approval of the elders. This is the outer treasury, and the key to the inner treasury is split into two halves. One is in the hands of the leader, and the other is in the hands of the speaker. Only matters that concern the survival of the business can open the inner treasury. Lone Bamboo explained, the treasury is divided into three parts: the outer treasury and the inner treasury. Ji-dong looked confused, and he said, "If that is the case, then how did Wang Daojun open the inner treasury and take out the regalia?" He didn't need to ask to know that a regalia should be stored in the inner treasury. Lone Bamboo sighed and said, "This is the special nature of the chairman. Every year, the chairman has the authority to inspect the inner and outer treasuries. The chairman cannot be in the Chamber of Commerce all the time. So, the chairman's key is monitored by the council. If the chairman needs to inspect the inner treasuries, and the chairman isn't there, then 10 or more elders will oversee the process. With Wang Daojun's influence, it shouldn't be difficult for him to retrieve the relic." Ji-dong said, "I see. No wonder he is so arrogant. Lone Bamboo gave a wry smile and said, "This time, Wang Daojun was taken down, and it shook the entire Chamber of Commerce. Luckily, you performed a miracle and completed the 3 tests. He lost the regalia too. If it wasn't for that, it would have been hard to say who would have won. The chairman and I are both 9-crown demon masters, but when it comes to control of the Chamber of Commerce, who can compete with Wang Daojun? After all, 2/3 of the Chamber of Commerce's businesses are directly or indirectly controlled by him. Other than what I've just said, the most important reason why we were able to win is because of the characteristics of merchants. Merchants value profit. They will support whoever can bring them the most profit. Without a doubt, the entire Chamber of Commerce is now wholeheartedly supporting you to become the next president. This is the true reason why he lost. Otherwise, just losing a divine artifact wouldn't have been enough to defeat him." As they spoke, they arrived at a palace-like building at the innermost part of the dungeon. Lone Bamboo stopped and said, "This palace is used to commemorate the leaders and speakers of the Chamber of Commerce. When they die, they are buried here. The entrance to the treasury is also here." In front of the palace-like building, there were 2 old men in their 60s sitting on chairs. They looked relaxed, but they blocked the entrance to the building. Ji Dong could tell how strong they were from their presences. Ji Dong was shocked that the 2 old men were not as strong as Zhou Xiaoxiao, but they were as strong as Lone Bamboo. They were both in the early stages of 9 crowns, and their magic was around level 92 or 93. A supreme being guarding the door? Ji Dong looked at Lone Bamboo with confusion, but Lone Bamboo had already walked forward. He bowed to the 2 old men and said, "Seniors, let me introduce you. This is our leader's heir." As he spoke, he moved aside to let Ji Dong in front of him. Ji Dong looked shocked. He understood now. This was the true power of the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce. It was probably why Wang Daojun was not afraid of Zhou Xiaoxiao and Lone Bamboo. These 2 old men were Gung Metal Element Elite. "Greetings, seniors." Ji Dong bowed slightly and gestured to the 2 elders. The old man on the left was thin. He looked at Hyoheim and looked him over. His cloudy eyes flashed. He said, "You are the successor that the fat man recommended?" Ji Dong smiled and said, "Yes." The thin old man smiled and said, "Then let's go in." Although that was what he said, he and the other old man did not move aside. Ji Dong Hun walked forward as if there was no one in front of him. Just as he was about to approach the 2 elders, a slim figure had already flashed in front of him. She raised her hands at the same time and slapped at the 2 elders on the chairs. The 2 old men snorted coldly at the same time, flipped their right palms up, and blocked that slender palm that was slapping over. 4 palms met. The expressions of the 2 old men, who still had a leisurely expression, changed at the same time. With an explosive kacha sound, the chairs under their bodies instantly turned into countless fragments and scattered in all directions. The 2 of them also quickly flipped over, almost directly falling to the ground, but the appearance of flipping over was already very embarrassing. After the slim shadow knocked away the 2 old men, she moved aside and made way. At this time, Ji Dong had just arrived. It was as if he had not seen what had happened. He walked forward and went straight to the palace-like building. The heavenly stem holy disciples followed closely behind. Like Ji Dong, they did not look at the 2 Gung Metal Supremes. What kind of power did she have to be to do that? Even Lone Bamboo's eyes widened in disbelief, let alone the 2 old men who had been knocked away. He knew that Ji Dong would have a way to deal with the 2 guardian elders who were under the command of the chairman. However, he did not expect that a woman from Ji Dong's side could easily knock away the 2 old men. What kind of power did she have to be to do that? The slim shadow was Jin. She had made a move at Chen Sichuan's signal. She had replaced Ji Dong, who had been about to make a move himself. Xian Jin and Gung Metal restrained each other. It all depended on who was stronger. With Jin's cultivation at the level of 9 crowns, Her magic was definitely not as good as the two old men. However, she was not human. She was a dragon, and she was the heir of the ancestor dragon's purest bloodline. Her saint-class body was not as simple as it seemed. Her power and magic exploded at the same time. Even the saint-class fire demon lord could not handle it, let alone the two old men at the level of 9 crowns. Her unparalleled power sent them flying and destroyed the chairs they were sitting on. The two old men's expressions flickered with uncertainty, but neither of them made another move. A Jin's outburst had made them feel a deep fear. Although they looked to be in their 60s, in reality, they were more than 100 years old. After that palm strike, the chi and blood in their bodies surged, and they could not calm down for a long time. They did not make another move because they did not want to humiliate themselves. They finally understood why Wang Daojun had lost so miserably. Lone Bamboo looked at the two disappointed old men and quickly walked forward. He followed the heavenly stem holy disciples into the hall. As soon as they entered the hall, Ji Dong saw Zhou Xiaoxiao waiting there. The fat man looked apologetic as he watched Hyoheim move. Clearly, he knew what the two old men were doing. Ji Dong smiled and said, "Let's go. Why are you still standing there? Where is the treasury?" He was not interested in the appearance of the hall, and he did not care about what had just happened. Lone Bamboo had already warned him. Although he did not say it explicitly, when he saw the two elites, Ji Dong understood that Zhou Xiaoxiao still did not have complete control over the stupid rich chamber of commerce. Seeing that Ji Dong didn't blame her, Zhou Xiaoxiao felt even more embarrassed. She nodded and bitterly smiled. "I have no choice. These supreme beings are only loyal to the Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, some of them are Wang Daojuan's elders. Although they can't say anything on the surface, they will still target me." Lone Bamboo caught up with them. He walked up to Zhou Xiaoxiao and said something to her. Zhou Xiaoxiao was shocked. She looked at Ajin, who was acting as if nothing had happened. She mumbled something, and Hyoheim gestured for them to go ahead. The heavenly dry saints could hear what she was mumbling. She said, "It turns out that the little bastard is not the only monster." Inside the hall, everything was carved out of white jade. On both sides of the hall, there were 8 white jade pillars. In the innermost part of the hall, there was a statue that was 10 meters tall. Without a doubt, this statue was the founder of the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce. Using pure white jade to decorate the interior of a building was something that not even the royal family could do. Only the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce could do such a thing. That showed how rich they were. Zhou Xiaoxiao's claim that the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce supported the entire West Jin Kingdom was not a joke. Zhou Xiaoxiao led the group to the back of the hall through a side door. The narrow hallway was made of white jade, and there were magic lamps on both sides. The fuel inside the lamps was the crystal core of a level 6 fire element demonic beast. This place was not extravagant, and there were no gemstones embedded in it, but the low-key luxury was shocking. As they walked, Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "Turn right from the front, and you will see the burial place of the previous presidents and speakers. I won't show you around. Let's go straight to the treasury." Along the way, they did not encounter any guards. The entire hall was quiet, as if they were the only ones present. The heavenly stem holy disciples naturally understood this point. If they could not even defend against the 2 supreme being guards outside, what was the point of having a bunch of guards? Zhou Xiaoxiao said to Hyoheim, "The people you met outside the door were all elders of the Chamber of Commerce. After they got old, they retired here and didn't participate in the affairs of the Chamber of Commerce. They just guard this place. In the eyes of these conservative elders, I, the president, am just an outsider, and Wang Daojun, the speaker, is the real successor of the Chamber of Commerce. So you can understand why Wang Daojun could easily take away the divine artifact, and why my control over this place is so weak." Ji Dong replied, "From what you're saying, there are more than 2 of them?" Zhou Xiaoxiao nodded and said, "There are more in the treasury." This is the foundation of our foolish rich chamber of commerce for 500 years. It was built with money and all kinds of treasures. When the first president expanded the Chamber of Commerce, the first thing he did was to adopt a large number of talented children and train them with all his strength. After hundreds of years, this tradition has never been broken. I dare say that our Chamber of Commerce is comparable to any country in terms of fighting strength. The first president was very wise. He understood that if he didn't have the same strength to protect himself, then everything would be useless. Therefore, he spared no effort to train talent. At the same time, he made an iron rule that the president must be a supreme master. Ji Dong nodded slightly and said, "Indeed, the wealth of your foolish rich chamber of commerce is comparable to that of any country. Your first president is really far-sighted. No wonder the foolish rich chamber of commerce has been standing for 500 years and the Western Jin Empire is willing to be controlled and influenced by you." Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "Now you know how strong our chamber of commerce is. In the future, we will rely on you to lead the entire chamber of commerce. The most depressing thing in my life is that I have never been able to control the entire chamber of commerce. This time, with your help, I'm afraid that it's still impossible for me to control the entire Chamber of Commerce. However, I believe that after you take over the Chamber of Commerce, no one will dare to oppose you." Ji Dong glanced at Zhou Xiaoxiao and didn't say anything. After making 2 turns and entering the rear hall, another statue appeared in front of everyone. This time, it wasn't a statue of a person, but an incomparably large gold coin. There were 10 different colored gems inlaid into a circle on the gold coin, and they were the images of 10 different types of totemic divine beasts. This gold coin had a diameter of 5 meters, and the heavy feeling it gave off told everyone that it was made of pure gold. "Oh my God!" Yao Qianshu leaped forward, his eyes flashing with the same brilliance as the gold coin. He was about to pounce on the big gold coin, but Zhou Xiaoxiao grabbed him by the collar and pulled him back. "Be careful, there are traps on it. Do you want to die?" Zhou Xiaoxiao said in a bad mood. At the same time, he was convinced that this guy really loved money. No wonder Ji Dong recommended him to be the president of the Chamber of Commerce. After putting Yao Qianshu down, Zhou Xiaoxiao strode forward, raised his hands at the same time, and quickly patted the big gold coin. Although his movements were very fast, they were also very rhythmic. The gold coin trembled slightly under his patting, and the inlaid gems on it slowly fell off. The sound of the mechanism rang out, and the huge gold coin slowly moved backward, revealing a passage. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "Below us is the outer vault of the treasury. This large gold coin and this rear hall are filled with traps. It's fine if you don't touch the gold coin, but once you do, a destructive mechanism will immediately activate. It's completely designed to deal with Supreme Being experts. This place has been invaded by bandits 3 times, and all of them were Supreme Being experts. However, not a single one of them managed to escape alive." After explaining to everyone, he took the lead and walked down the passage. Everyone followed him, and finally entered the treasury of this foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. Chapter 568. There were also magic lamps on both sides of the passageway. Although it was deeper underground, the air was very fresh. Clearly, there was a special ventilation method here that did not make the entire underground air dirty. As soon as they entered the passage, the expressions of the heavenly stem saints changed, because they could clearly feel the strong mana fluctuations in the surroundings. Moreover, they could sense the strong mana fluctuations of the 10 element. The walls on both sides were made of some unknown material, but they gave off an incomparably heavy feeling. Zhou Xiaoxiao cleared their doubts. The main body of the treasury is made of granite, but all the binders used to bind the granite are mixed with the powder of the 5 elements divine stone. After the treasury was built, the president of that generation invited 10 of the most famous supremes at that time to inject mana into the treasury according to the secret book of formations that our Chamber of Commerce obtained. It took 3 years, and for this, the Chamber of Commerce paid a huge price. The mana that the supremes of the 10 elements divine stone poured into the treasury for 3 years made this array have the ability to operate on its own. It will not completely dissipate even after thousands of years. Its defensive power is so strong that even ultimate skills cannot break it. Only ultimate skills can destroy it. Hearing his words, everyone could not help but think of the treasure in the fog forest with the 5 elements array. Wasn't the array there the same, but the array there was built by the heavenly stem saints themselves. After going down 100 meters, everyone came to a stone room that was about 200 square meters in size. The concentration of mana here was even more obvious, but these mana elements could not be absorbed. The various attributes of the mana elements in the air seemed to have been completely absorbed by the surrounding stone walls. It could be said that this was definitely one of the most unsuitable places for cultivation. A huge stone door appeared in front of everyone. In front of the stone door, there were 4 old men in gray clothes. They looked very plain, but this time, the heavenly stem saints were really shocked by the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. Since when did Supreme Being experts become so worthless? There were 4 of them. Their demonic powers felt similar to the previous 2, but their attributes were different. Among these 4, there were 2 yin-yang twin flames and 2 yin-yang twin wood. They were the supreme beings of the 4 elements. "Greetings, President." Seeing Zhou Xiaoxiao, the 4 old men bowed slightly to her without batting an eyelid. Zhou Xiaoxiao hurriedly said, "For consecrators, there's no need to be so courteous. This is the successor I've chosen. He's also this generation's heavenly stem holy monarch." The leader of the 4 elders had a head of red hair and an extremely sturdy figure. Even his beard was red. His gaze swept across Ji Dong's body. Unlike the 2 elders outside who had made things difficult for them, this elder had a gratified expression on his face as he said, "Good, good. This generation's heavenly stem saint ruler is from our fire element. This is truly a rare piece of good news. Little friend, how old are you this year?" Ji Dong said indifferently, "I'm almost 24. The red-haired old man nodded and said, "Your future is limitless. Please come in." As he spoke, he moved to the side and made way for them. Ji Dong thanked him and walked forward with Zhou Xiaoxiao. As expected, the 4 consecrators didn't stop them. However, just as they entered the open door behind the consecrators, the red-haired consecrator blocked the path of the heavenly stem saints. Ji Dong stopped in his tracks and looked at Zhou Xiaoxiao in confusion. The red-haired consecrator said, "The successor of the president can naturally enter the Chamber of Commerce's treasury. However, outsiders, including the heavenly stem saints, can't enter so easily." Zhou Xiaoxiao's face darkened. "Consecrator Qi, what do you mean by this? Every generation of president has the right to equip their own guard. Moreover, when Ji Dong underwent the most difficult test in the history of the Chamber of Commerce, we had already agreed to fully support the heavenly stem saints once he passed the test. Elder, please don't make things difficult for me." Consecrator Qi said indifferently, "This was agreed to by the president, not by us. Since we were ordered to guard the treasury, we have to be responsible for the Chamber of Commerce. They aren't the future president's guards, but his companions. If you don't believe me, you can ask them. Since when did the heavenly stem saints become guards for others?" "You!" Zhou Xiaoxiao was furious. Just as he was about to flare up, Chen Xishuan walked out from the group of heavenly stem saints. "The 4 consecrators are making things difficult for us because they want to test us again. How about this? I'll use my demonic energy to do something. If any of you can do it, we'll turn around and leave. Otherwise, please make way." The red-haired old man was stunned when he saw Chen Xishuan's face. She wasn't wearing a veil at this moment, and her perfect appearance couldn't help but make the hearts of these old men palpitate. Chen Xishuan waved her hands, and a milky white petal flew out and appeared in front of the 4 supreme beings. Closely after, More white petals flew out one after another and stacked on top of each other. A milky white flower with a gentle glow gradually appeared in front of everyone. Chen Sichuan's Imu crown flickered above her head. She had unknowingly reached level 86 in terms of demonic energy and displayed her Imu attribute. However, the white that was released before her eyes wasn't the white that would attribute demonic energy should have at all. The four foolishly rich consecrators of the Chamber of Commerce, who didn't take it seriously at first, suddenly became nervous. They were definitely knowledgeable, so they could naturally tell what kind of magical power Chen Sichuan was using. It was the 6 directions condensed from the Tree of Chaos. Among the 4 consecrators, there was also a Imu attribute supreme powerhouse. As a consecrator of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce, she naturally had some understanding of the chaotic wood with the support of the Chamber of Commerce. However, it was impossible for her to reach Chen Sichuan's level. This is... Ji Dong's pupils dilated. Of course, he knew what Chen Sichuan was using. Wasn't it the 6 directions creation that scared the sage-to-be Lin Qing back then? The milky white 6 directions creation rotated slowly in the air, and a powerful suction force was emitted from it. This suction force completely belonged to the aura of chaos. That's right, there wasn't any magical element in the air here, but there was in the formation in the treasury. The 6 directions creation was powerful because it could absorb any form of wood attribute to replenish itself. Within the walls, wood attribute elements began to appear slowly and were forcefully absorbed by the 6 directions creation. Moreover, as its demonic energy increased, the absorption speed also began to increase. What are you doing? Stop right now. The Imu attribute consecrator couldn't hold it in anymore. The 4 consecrators were in awe of Chen Sichuan's control. They knew that they definitely wouldn't be able to reach such a level. At the same time, they deeply felt the destructive aura. If the 6 directions creation continued to absorb endlessly, who knew what would happen? After all, the demonic energy in the formation in the treasury was extremely abundant. It was naturally useless for the Imu attribute consecrator to make a move. Her demonic energy would only be absorbed by the 6 directions creation. Therefore, the red-haired consecrator who was the leader made a move. In a flash, he slapped his palm towards the 6 directions creation. Unfortunately, his hand met with a large bluish-purple hand, and a deep explosion was heard. The red-haired old man only felt an extremely overbearing power numbing his entire body, especially his palm. It felt as if it had been slashed by a heavy axe, and he couldn't help but raise his entire arm. On the other hand, the person who blocked him only shook his shoulder and took a step back before regaining his balance. Without a doubt, Fury, the Thunder Emperor who blocked the red-haired elder, was naturally at a disadvantage in terms of mana. However, if he added the power of the Hell Thunder Divine Axe to his palm, it was uncertain who would be at a disadvantage. After all, Fury had benefited a lot from the battle with the Cerberus, and his control of mana had become even more profound. Fury wasn't the only one who stepped forward. At the same time, all the heavenly stem saints stepped forward and shielded Chen Sichuan behind them, allowing the 6 directions creation to absorb the surrounding mana. Ji Dong, what are you guys doing? It wasn't just the 4 consecrators. Even Zhou Xiaoxiao was shocked. Of course, he could sense the terrifying power of the 6 directions creation, and he also understood the great destructive power it could produce when it was unleashed. Pale with fright, he hurriedly spoke up to stop them. Ji Dong smiled indifferently and said, "Since the consecrators want to measure our strength, we can't disappoint the seniors, right?" At this moment, the 4 consecrators finally understood that Ji Dong wasn't the only powerful heavenly stem saint. None of the young people in front of them were easy to deal with. Even though most of them hadn't reached the cultivation of 9 crowns, they seemed to be no match for them. The red-haired elder sighed slightly and was the first to step aside. Although the other 3 consecrators were unwilling, they still stepped aside in the end. They couldn't risk the entire treasury being destroyed just to vent their anger. Qin Sichuan smiled sweetly, and a green light instantly engulfed her body. It was the eternal armor of the goddess of life. The moment the eternal armor appeared, a strong aura of life immediately surged out and blocked the six directions creation from absorbing mana from the outside world. As the light spread out, the six directions creation returned to her body. Although this was because the six directions creation had not accumulated much mana, it also displayed Qin Sichuan's powerful strength. Not to mention the consecrators, even the heavenly stem saints couldn't figure out how strong she was in actual combat. The heavenly stem saints strode forward with their heads held high. They walked past the four consecrators and into the treasury behind them. They didn't even look at the consecrators. Zhou Xiaoxiao secretly gave Hyoheim a thumbs up and secretly praised her. Before the arrival of the heavenly stem saints, he was still a little worried. The consecrators guarding this place weren't completely under his control. These supreme experts were the mainstays of the Chamber of Commerce, and their relationship with Wang Daojun was obviously much better than his. But who would have thought that the heavenly stem saints would be able to pass through this hurdle so easily? The heavenly stem saints didn't think as much as the fatty. When they finally entered the treasury, they were dazzled by everything in front of them almost immediately. It could no longer be described as the splendor of jewels. They only felt as if they had entered a strange world. The first thing that came into view after entering the treasury was a huge and spacious space that was 30 meters tall and at least tens of thousands of square meters wide. In this huge space, the flowing and changing light of the treasures was like a demonic realm that shrouded them. The strong elemental waves and the dazzling light were dazzling. Even someone as composed as Ji Dong couldn't help but be moved. The center of the huge space was completely empty, and it was surrounded by a circle of huge cabinets that were 30 meters tall. There were neat partitions in the cabinets, and all kinds of rare treasures such as magical weapons and equipment, as well as crystal cores, were placed neatly. For a moment it was dazzling and overwhelming. Zhou Xiaoxiao looked at the dazzled looks on everyone's faces and felt a little better in her heart. These young people were still human after all. However, Ji Dong's next words pulled Fatty back to reality. "Fatty, bring us directly to the inner treasury." Zhou Xiaoxiao was speechless as he looked at Ji Dong. A monster was a monster, after all. He said helplessly, "Isn't there anything you want here?" Ji Dong looked at him and said with a smile, "What do you think? You should know what we want." Zhou Xiaoxiao sighed helplessly and said, "Come on." As he said that, he leaped into the air. This place was really huge, and if they were to walk, they would have to walk for a while. Everyone else followed behind him. It was obvious that the dazzled looks of the heavenly stem saints were just a facade. Zhou Xiaoxiao brought the crowd to the center of the outer treasury and stood on the pattern of a gold coin on the ground. He took out 2 keys that were 1 meter long and embedded with many gems from his storage magic tool. He combined the 2 keys and inserted them into the center of the gold coin. Strangely enough, there was no hole in the middle of the gold coin, but when the 2 keys were inserted, they disappeared into the gold coin. It was as if the gold coin was made of tofu, and when it was inserted, it was seamless. There was no flaw at all. Zhou Xiaoxiao chuckled and turned the key. Immediately, a rumbling sound began to appear. What surprised everyone was that the entire hall seemed to be shaking slightly. The heavenly stem saint disciples were all shrewd people. There was clearly a reason for such a situation to occur. It was likely that the mechanism of the inner treasury was extremely large and was completely connected to the entire outer treasury. Chapter 569. The image of the huge gold coin slowly sank down, revealing a passage. Compared to the passage outside, this passage was much narrower, only allowing 2 people to walk side by side. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "Down from here is the inner treasury. Ji Dong, you can't just sweep the inner treasury clean. There are actually quite a few good things in the outer treasury, and there are even demonic weapons of the demonic artifact level. You guys can take a look. Fury's eyes flashed and he said, Fatty, don't be so stingy. You're letting us take whatever we want, so why not be generous? The more you say the outer treasury is good, the more we know the inner treasury is better. You're trying to go for wool and come home shorn. Zhou Xiaoxiao helplessly said, Okay. Everyone, please follow me. After that, he walked down. Walking down the tunnel for another 100 meters, they finally arrived at their destination. However, they were once again blocked by a door. Another 2 old men stood in front of them. Compared to the previous 6 consecrators, these 2 had a more solemn temperament. Their demonic energy fluctuations were also clearly stronger. They were sovereign experts whose cultivation exceeded level 95. Everyone couldn't help but be slightly surprised when they saw these 2 supreme being experts, and Fury's reaction was especially obvious. However, the surprise on his face only flashed for a moment, and he quickly returned to normal. The silly rich chamber of commerce was too powerful. Including Zhou Xiaoxiao and Lone Bamboo, they didn't have all 10 elements, but they had 10 supremes. This power was enough to fight the entire continent. The silly rich chamber of commerce wasn't rich enough to fight a country, it was rich enough to fight a continent. With their wealth and power, even if they kept this tradition for 5,000 years, the silly rich chamber of commerce wouldn't fall. Zhou Xiaoxiao said sternly, Everyone here is a heavenly stem saint, but I still have to emphasize that everyone here has seen the biggest secret of my foolishly rich chamber of commerce. Please keep it a secret and don't tell anyone. Fatty thanks you here. As he said that, he actually took the initiative to bow to the heavenly stem saint with an extremely solemn expression. Ji Dong nodded and said, Don't worry, Leader Zhou. We won't tell anyone what we saw today. Zhou Xiaoxiao nodded slightly, then turned to the 2 level 95 and above worshippers and said respectfully, Seniors, please open the door. This time, he did not receive any criticism. The door of the palace treasury slowly opened, revealing a path. When the door to the inner storeroom opened, the expressions of 3 people immediately changed. They were Ji Dong, Tianji, and Chen Xishuan. They had clearly sensed something attracting them, while the other heavenly stem saints did not have much of a reaction. Zhou Xiaoxiao walked in front and led the group into the inner treasury. Only after walking through the door did everyone realize that it was a stone room that was only about 30 square meters in size. Moreover, it was completely empty. Without needing anyone to ask, Zhou Xiaoxiao had already moved. His hands pressed to both sides, and 2 strands of gung metal demonic power came out of his palms. Then, he overlapped his hands and struck hundreds of palms at lightning speed. His movements seemed to have a special rhythm, and each palm was not repeated. When the last palm was struck, Zhou Xiaoxiao's face showed a hint of exhaustion. Obviously, those palms he had struck just now contained demonic power. Fatty Hyoheim explained, Even if you come here, without the cultivation of a supreme being, you can't open the mechanism here. Before he finished speaking, accompanied by the sound of gears, the surrounding stone walls slowly retreated, and secret compartments rose from the ground, slowly filling in the position of the previous stone walls. Unlike the extravagant candlelight of the outer storehouse, there was no flickering of treasure light after these hidden compartments appeared, nor were there any rare treasures. Among the 4 walls, 2 of the hidden compartments that appeared were actually bookshelves. There were many simple and unadorned books on them, while the other 2 walls had boxes placed on them. It was unknown what they were. Skill books. Ji Dong turned his head and looked at Zhou Xiaoxiao. Zhou Xiaoxiao nodded silently and said, These are rare skill books that the Chamber of Commerce has collected through various means and money over the past 500 years. Most of them are super killing skills. Only some special killing skills can be selected. If you need them, please copy them. The original must be left here. Ji Dong shook his head and said, You should not bite off more than you can chew. We already have enough skills. Unless you have a creation divine skill here, it will not be of much use to us. Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "That's true. You heavenly STEM saints should be the group that needs skill books the least. If it was an ordinary devil master who came here, I am afraid that they would not be willing to leave. When I first came here, I spent 3 years here and closed myself for 3 years before I was willing to leave. This was because the previous president repeatedly urged me to leave, fearing that I would go crazy. Otherwise, it might take longer." Ji Dong nodded. Fatty was right. Skill books of ultimate killing techniques could be said to be priceless treasures. Generally speaking, even for a supreme expert, the number of ultimate killing techniques they possessed was very small, and different ultimate killing techniques could be used in different situations. In actual combat, the more ultimate killing techniques a supreme expert knew, especially those with special effects, the greater the possibility of defeating the opponent. After reaching the level of 9 crowns, although magic power was important, ultimate killing techniques could determine the outcome of the entire war, so they were also extremely important. The value of these 2 walls of ultimate killing technique books could not be measured with money. The reason why Ji Dong used words to block the way of the heavenly STEM saints was very simple. He could not lead everyone to waste time here. He had no time to waste. Once everyone was immersed in practicing these skills, not only would their magic power progress be slow, but the time wasted was also unbearable for Ji Dong. Therefore, even though most of the heavenly STEM saints showed hope, Ji Dong resolutely made it clear to them that they could not learn skills here. Everyone supported Ji Dong's decision unconditionally. It had been proven many times that Ji Dong's decisions were mostly correct. Even if there were some minor problems with his decisions, the heavenly STEM saints would still follow. A snake without a head could not work, and a dragon without a head was the most terrifying thing. A powerful group like the heavenly STEM saints needed a strong commander. Only then could everyone's strength be fully exerted. Just as everyone reluctantly shifted their gazes away from the bookshelves, Tianji, who rarely spoke, was the first to move. He directly walked towards the hidden compartment where the boxes were placed, and stopped in front of a small gray box that was not very eye-catching. He stared at the box and clenched his fists tightly. If this had happened to Yao Qianshu, no one would have been surprised at all. This guy loved money and was the best at identifying treasures. However, when it happened to Tianji, everyone could not help but be surprised. Tianji had a certain level of prediction ability, but ever since the calamity of the Holy Evil Island, he rarely made predictions for everyone. He usually followed everyone silently, and there were even times when the heavenly STEM saints had forgotten about his existence. "President Zhou, can I have the things in this box?" Tianji suddenly turned around and said to Zhou Xiaoxiao. Zhou Xiaoxiao was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "Of course you can. However, I have to emphasize that if the things in the inner treasury are not one-time consumables, then after the Holy War, I will have to trouble everyone to return them. Although I am the president, the things here are too precious. I have no right to give them away. I hope everyone can understand." The heavenly STEM saints nodded one after another to express their understanding. At this moment, Tianji raised his hands impatiently, carefully held the box in his palms, and gently opened the lid. The small gray box was square, and its sides were about 10 centimeters long. It was previously in a corner, and could be said to be the most inconspicuous place in the inner treasury, but Tianji chose it. Everyone wanted to see what Tianji had chosen, so no one paid attention to other places, and their eyes fell on Tianji alone. Tianji took a deep breath. Ji Dong could clearly see that his hands were actually trembling as he held the box. Ever since Yun Tianji inherited the Tianji orthodoxy, this kind of situation was extremely rare. Ji Dong had always believed that in terms of mental stability, Tianji was above him. What exactly could make him so emotional? At this moment, even Ji Dong could not help but be curious. The small gray box slowly opened in front of everyone's eyes. There were no mana fluctuations released because of the opening of the box. Logically speaking, such a small box could only hold gems or crystal cores, but there were no mana fluctuations released in front of them. It was obvious that it did not contain those things. However, when the lid of the box was opened a little more, all the heavenly stem saints, including Ji Dong, shivered. Without any warning, everyone's bodies trembled. They could clearly feel that there was suddenly a pair of eyes staring at them in this narrow room. This strange feeling could not help but cause an inexplicable chill to run down everyone's spine. Even Zhou Xiaoxiao was shocked by the same feeling, and the girl's expressions became even more unsightly. Finally, Tianji opened the small box completely. What was presented to everyone was indeed a gemstone, but it was an extremely strange gemstone. The gem was in the shape of a date seed, with two sharp ends and an oval middle. The entire gem did not emit any luster, and most of it was transparent. Only the center was black, and no matter how one looked at it, it looked like an eye. Ah! Du Xian suddenly screamed and said with a trembling voice, that I can move, it seems to be looking at me. It was clearly a stone, how could it move? The chill on their bodies increased a little. At this moment, Tianji used his body to block the stone in the box and said with a trembling voice, "Everyone, don't look, or it will have an adverse effect on you." It's really it." Fury's eyes were filled with shock, and he asked impatiently, "Tianji, what exactly is this thing? Shouldn't you give everyone an explanation first?" Tianji nodded his head vigorously and said, "Great, this is really great. I didn't expect to find it here." No wonder more than 10 generations of Tianji couldn't find any traces of it. It turns out that it's deep in this underground vault, and there's such a powerful formation outside to isolate it. No wonder we can't fight it. Fury said impatiently, "Tianji, hurry up and tell us what it is. Don't be so wishy-washy." Ji Dong looked at Fury doubtfully, and couldn't help but feel a little strange. Why did senior brother suddenly become so impatient after Tianji opened the box? One must know that with his familiarity with Fury, he naturally knew that this senior brother was not as straightforward as he appeared on the surface. How could Ji Dong not be surprised by such a sudden change in his mood? Fury also seemed to realize that he had lost his composure. He scratched his head and said, "I'm sorry, my tone was too harsh. Tianji, don't take it to heart." Tianji silently shook his head, and said slowly in a somewhat strange voice, "The gem in this box has a special name, it's called the Stone of Misfortune. Apart from us, if any human or other living beings get their hands on it, then they will die within 100 days without exception. However, to us it has another name, it's called the Eye of Tianji. The one in my hand is the light eye of Tianji that has been missing for many years. More than 10 generations of Tianji have spent their entire lives searching for it, but they couldn't find it. I didn't expect to find it here today. The heavens really have eyes, they didn't destroy our 5 elements continent." The heavenly stem holy disciples looked at each other with joy on their faces. This was definitely good news for them. But Ji Dong noticed that senior brother's breathing seemed to have become a little rapid. Although there was joy in his eyes, it was a little unnatural. Tianji continued, "Does everyone always think that I'm much weaker than darkness, Tianji? Even before the great tribulation of the holy and evil tribulation, darkness Tianji was still able to summon the wind and summon the rain in the 5 elements continent, while I was unknown. Actually, this is because we, Tianji, have long lost the eyes of Tianji. Without the eyes of Tianji, for us, it's like a demon master losing his magic power. The prediction ability and powerful soul deterrence ability of Tianji are many times weaker. Now that I've finally found the eyes of Tianji, I finally have the chance to open my eyes of Tianji."